Welcome to the City Council meeting, Monday, January the 6th. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:30. Please stand and join me for the flag salute. Ready, begin. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Here.
Councilmember Perez,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Here.
and Mayor McQueen LaShawn.
Here. We're going to move to the inspiration, and I get to do the inspiration tonight. I'm pretty excited about that, being that it's the first council meeting in the year. So, Happy New Year, everyone. Okay. So I just been doing some reflection for myself over the past few months, and I'm not one to do New Year's resolutions, but I do try to make some decisions of how I'm going to move forward in the year. So I'm just going to share some of my thinking with you on this evening. So again, we're all here at the first council meeting of the year. So we're standing at the threshold of new opportunities, some challenges maybe, and the growth for our city. January is a time for fresh perspectives, where the lessons of the past year guide us as we chart the course for the future. And while, again, I don't make resolutions, I have made a commitment this year. My commitment as it relates to the council is to not look back, unless it's to learn from the past experience to inform our future decisions, to gain perspective on current situations, or to understand patterns that might repeat. So you might ask why? My response would be Google it. Google why we should not look back in the past. And I tell you, there's nothing positive written about looking back and living in the past. So it's good to look forward. So the council is not just a body of decision makers. We are residents, we are community members, we are 5 individuals who experience and deal with some of the same issues along with the residents of Port Hueneme. So know that. So let's take a moment to reflect on just a few of our possible shared values: progress, accountability, and service. With just these 3 principles in mind, let us set our intentions for the year ahead, focusing on the long-term health and success of our community. So today, it marks the beginning of a new chapter, a new year, one filled with possibility, purpose, and collective action. Together, I'm confident we'll build on the foundations we've established, starting with all the wonderful things our former mayor shared with us at our last meeting, and as well as the staff, the leaders of this city. I have a long list of names, and I always say I don't really like to call names. I'd have to say charge it to my head, not my heart. I never want to miss anyone, but I will just call a couple of names on today. So we're here, but we can't do our job without the city leadership. That's our city manager, our city attorney. I see Commander Albertson here. I see our fire department here. Our chief, Federico's here. The police department is here. And you, the community, you're here. So collectively, we can go forward and make this city better. And finally, as we begin this first meeting of the year, may it inspire us all to collaborate, to innovate, and lead with compassion and integrity. So let's enter the new year with optimism and a renewed commitment to our mission. Thank you. And with that, we'll move to public comments. Any public comments?
Yes, Becky Bruning, and after Ms. Bruning, it will be Mr. Ross.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, City Staff, audience. I'm here on behalf of Real Guppy Outdoors tonight. This Saturday, we're having our rod building session from 10 to 1. If you have a fishing rod that you need repaired, bring it by and we'll show you how to do it.
Thank you.
Mr. Greg Ross.
Good evening. Longtime resident of Ventura County since 1970. Thank you for listening. You have a hard job, and I, for one, appreciate all of you. The city, I've lived in South Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, and this city, more than any other I've been in, is very responsive. 3 nights ago or 3 days ago, we had major graffiti at Market and Surfside. I called in. It was done within less than 24 hours, and they fixed the graffiti. Thank you. We had a semi-tractor trailer rig parked on Market. Doesn't belong there. Sergeant Bates, Sergeant Frederico, thank you for being responsive, and they got it out of there. This is what I really love about this city. Now I want to talk about the port. You may have seen this, you may not have. This is their 10-year strategic plan. I'm going to start off with the most difficult issue, and that is the page 27 on this strategic plan talks about the rail lines. Well, to my knowledge, the rail line running out of the southeast side of the port is only used once a year for the Banana Festival. But they have bigger plans if you read this. And it's not something, I know caveat emptor, buyer beware, but this is going to disrupt the lives. And I know some of you live out towards Surfside, and I live in Anacapa View Beach Homes. But this rail line, if they use it like they're saying they're going to, is really going to disrupt a lot of lives. And boy, I'll be the first one at the door to get my voice heard about this, because it doesn't work for our community. Ports are a difficult topic. And you can see from here how many different, recently, different journalists taking on the ports and the pollution they create. And if you look at all of the West Coast ports, we are by far and away the most close in proximity to this port right here. And their pollution, we have black carbon soot on our screens. It's a problem. Their pollution is killing us. We've had 10 people just in our community die of cancer. Anyway, I gave you a little handout. The noise pollution is all the worse. The truckers and the port doesn't respond. They are not our friend. They're not good neighbors. Thanks for listening.
Jan Burke, and then Randall Thomas.
If I could just mention while Jan's coming up that I know the port did recently implement that bonnet project that they had done a presentation on. And so they had offered to come back and kind of talk about that when that was being implemented and kind of explain how it works. So that's something that we can request as a upcoming presentation item.
Happy New Year, Mayor, Council, staff, neighbors. I'm going to talk about the port later, but I wanted to just mention that the Hueneme HOA Coalition has had a number of meetings, and that we are bringing to you today the focus that we want to embark on this year for 2025 with the collaboration of the council and the staff. And there are 3 topics that have bubbled up as items that we would like to collaborate on. One is public safety. Of course, that's an ongoing matter that we all are concerned about, and we greatly appreciate, as Greg had mentioned, the responsiveness of our police department. They're doing such a great job. In addition, we are going to embark on short-term rentals, and we have chairmans for each of these, and I'll mention that in a minute. And the last would be the concerns about the port's master plan and the growth, the anticipated growth, and how that is going to impact, or potentially could impact, the quality of life of our community. So Paige LePen is here. She is our chair for the short-term rentals. Randall Thomas is here. If you would both stand up. He is going to be the chair for the port. And Mitch Disney, I don't think he is here, but Mitch Disney will be our chair for the public safety. He's the one that brought up the concerns about the homeless in the Mandalay Bay Shopping Center. So anyway, those are the topics that we're going to come to you with, and I believe that Paige has some public comments that she will be presenting, and we will be back to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City Staff, and everybody in attendance. I just want to elaborate a little bit more on the focus for the port. It's to inspire more collaboration, better and more open communication and conversations, so that way people can properly get the information that the port's putting out, such as their 10-year strategic plan, what's actually going on when it comes to their green energy ideas and implementations that they want to focus on. And as well as making sure that we as a city and citizens can see how we can assist you in making sure that our voice is heard from the port itself to those port commissioners, and making sure that our city can get a fair deal and we have a voice when conversations really do start happening and getting brought up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have written comments. The first is from Patty Paige LePen. She asked that I read this. Port Hueneme is a city of approximately 21,000 residents who are lucky enough to live in a community that still has a residential feel. Many of us are concerned that the unregulated conversion of homes to short-term rentals will erode the residential feel and create an atmosphere like Motel 6. We would like the City Council to consider adding short-term rentals to the agenda of a future meeting, February 3rd if possible. We also plan to have a town hall meeting to invite all Port Hueneme residents to attend sometime in March. If the schedule permits, we would love to have the meeting in the council room. A Redfin article on February 14, 2024 by Lily Katz reported that real estate investors bought 26.1% of low-priced U.S. homes that sold in the fourth quarter. In the past couple of years, several beach cities have experienced the negative consequences of REITs buying properties purely as an investment. Investors interested only in maximizing profits are less interested in preserving the structures and communities of their investments. Port Hueneme is the only beach community in our area that does not have short-term rental restrictions. The California Coastal Commission governs these issues. The HHOAC Subcommittee on Short-Term Rentals, the STR-SC of the HHOAC, will be posting updates on Facebook page, HHOAC. This is a complicated issue, and it will take some time for us to arrive at a plan that meets the needs of our city and our residents. If the council agrees that we should pursue this issue, city manager may contact the California Coastal Commission by reaching out to Tyler Lydell, a coastal programs analyst assigned to the city of Port Hueneme. We hope the HOAs and the city can work together to decrease the cost of enforcement for the city and the HOAs. Due to the Davis-Sterling Act, HOAs have many limitations before we can levy fines, and the administrative costs of doing so are almost prohibitive. Thank you for your kind attention to this matter. Patty Paige LePen, Chair, HHOAC, Subcommittee for Short-Term Rentals. See Ventura County Star, December 5th, 2024, for additional details. The next public comment is from Mary Serrato. Hello, good evening. I am writing this email regarding the council member who is trying to get rid of all the good things our city has gained these past 2 years, as well as for our city seems and feels safer than ever. There are a lot more youth involvement. My boys have benefited so much. I and my family are so very thankful for the new chief. He has shown care for our community. Our city of Port Hueneme has gained so much with new events and activities for youth and family. I surely want to thank him from my family and myself. I feel that our city does need and want city councils who want and look for the best interests of our community and city. Thank you. Here's my contact if needed. The next is from Dulce Setterfield. Comment by Ms. Dulce Setterfield, a longtime resident of Port Hueneme. Greetings, Mayor McQueen-LaShawn and all council members. I'm voicing support for goals identified by Patty Page LaPen in her commentary about short-term rentals, or STRs. While Ms. LaPen's talking points reflect the solidarity of a Hueneme HOA Coalition Committee, I speak as a fly on the wall witnessing repeated pushes by real estate agents to present condominium units close to the beach as golden opportunities for STRs. I encourage you to address STRs as you update your local coastal plan and coordinate with other relevant matters. Please consider lodging, licensing, and taxation and prudent levels of inspection and enforcement oversight. You can find examples along our coast of what other municipalities are succeeding with or aiming to improve with regard to STR regulation. I've looked as far away as Port Angeles, Washington, a waterfront city slightly less populated than ours. It's a gateway to attractions such as Olympic National Park plus the Black Ball Ferry to Victoria, British Columbia. Port Angeles considered capping total STRs not to exceed a certain percentage of housing stock. The vote turned out 4.342% cap, although lower cap was initially favored. Elected officials did not choose an option their staff recommended. Robust public input helped those officials to find the best way forward in 2024. A city like Port Angeles is not subject to the policies and processes of a coastal commission like Port Hueneme is with regard to lodging accessibility. I ask that you not delay in facing STR issues now impacting our community. Those issues aren't going away by themselves. Then I have one final comment from Jeffrey Scarberry. My comment is regarding part of the last meeting in December. Apparently, a majority group did not want Mr. Gama to be mayor pro tem, even though he has served on the council for 6 years. I think the public deserved to hear a clear explanation as to why that was the case. Those on the dais who did not support Ms. Hernandez for mayor pro tem appropriately stated their reasoning. As the process played out, it appeared there may have been some prior discussion by at least a couple of members on that item, which is unfortunate. As we enter a new year, hopefully everyone will work together and be nice while keeping the best interests of the city and its people the #1 priority. Thank you, Jeffrey Scarberry, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to the agenda approval. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item on the agenda? No? Thank you. And we'll move on to our presentations. First, we have a recognition in honor of the police chaplain. City Manager.
Thank you, and I'm going to hand it over to Chief Federico, who will present the recognition of Police Chaplain Merrick Carter.
Good evening, everyone. We are here tonight to recognize and honor the 25 years of service that Police Chaplain Merrick Carter has devoted to our city. Merrick, come up, stand next to me so you can be all embarrassed and stuff standing next to me. He's not embarrassed. You all think I talk too much? Like, you get the two of us together, and there's a lot of talking going on. So Merrick served 25 years as a volunteer police chaplain for the police department, but he's one of the people that was here when I left over 20 years ago to Santa Monica, and I came home in 2023, and he was still here. Yep. So thank you. We used to ride with me. We would go to Uncle Herb's back when that existed. Yeah. That was a favorite breakfast spot for him. As our police chaplain, his duties included riding along with officers on routine patrol on various shifts, accompanying police officers to assist with notifications of any suicide, death, or serious injury. This included crisis situations where a chaplain was needed in our community. I provided counseling within the police department, response to stress or family crisis problems, visited with sick or injured members of the department in their home or the hospital. He offered prayers and invocations at special occasions such as Explorer graduations and various ceremonies. He provided practical assistance to victims in the community when needed, and he'd pick up the phone 24/7 when we needed him. While doing this, he was busy with his day job and other activities. Merrick's currently the character development specialist coach for Ventura College football team. He also served as the senior pastor at the Pacific Coast Ministries. He received his BA and MA in biblical studies and his PhD in pastoral theology. He and his lovely wife, Arlene, have 3 daughters and 7 wonderful grandchildren. Folks, departing from his duties here with us will give him more time to spend with family and with his other duties. The man has a very busy life, and lots of things are calling him. So with that, I want to thank Chaplain Merrick Carter for his 25 years of volunteer service to our police department and to our community. Thank you. Thanks, brother. Let's take a picture up here. They've got and this is to Chaplain Merrick Carter in recognition of your achievements, contributions, and dedicated service to the community. Let's go up and take a picture. Sure. You can say some farewell.
Chief, I think he was also part of the Salvation Army when he and some of our officers went to 9/11.
Right,
as well.
yes.
So you were the reason why that happened, I believe.
Right. Well, you never give a preacher a mic, but I want to thank all of you guys for coming out, especially my church members. I love you. I appreciate it. All the officers. You guys mean so much to me. The mayor, council members, staff, thank you all so much. Chief Mike Federico, we really appreciate you. And it's been a long time, a lot of years. I've seen a lot of changes happen through the years, and it's been a blessing. But I have to say this. I really support the police department. These men and women go through a lot. They really do. There's things that I've seen that in a small community like this, you never would think some of the things that go on, and these men and women have to deal with that day in and day out. So I will always support them, and I made it emphatically clear to the chief that whenever they need me, is something special and they don't have anybody else to come out, they need a pastor to come out and talk, I'm always available for you. And so that's about all I have to say. So thank you all so much. God bless you.
I could stand on a chair.
You know what? I almost forgot. It would be remiss on my part. Come on, sweetheart. To thank Arlene, my wife. Isn't she beautiful?
She is beautiful.
I'm very good-looking woman. Her being by my side the whole time. The times I would get calls 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning going out, she was there, and she's always been supportive, and I thank God for her. The Bible says when you have a good woman, you got a good thing. God has definitely blessed me. Thank you so much.
Come on, please.
Okay. We got one more. Okay.
Thank you so much.
While he's taking his seat, did anyone have any words?
Yes.
Councilman Perez.
Chaplain Carter, I know you and my husband go way back. So I'm just going to say on his behalf, he could not be here, Sergeant Perez. I'm sure he would thank you for all the dedication you did for the city, for him. I know you were there for him through his own trials. And so thank you for your service to the city. And we wish you luck with whatever you do.
I don't know if the Bible says when you got a good pastor, you got a good pastor. But I sure hope it says that. And the thing I find most impressive about you is you stayed behind the scenes and you knew when you're needed. And you knew that the work that our officers do is very difficult. And there's times where even the toughest of the toughest need a shoulder to confide in. And knowing that you've been there on those dark nights, those horrific events, it really makes us, me, and I'm sure everyone else, feel good about the mental well-being of our officers, because we know it's very difficult, the scenarios, the scenes, and the travesty of society that you have to deal with. And so thank you so much for being there for our officers and making their mental health a priority. Thank you.
Pastor, thank you so much for your service to our city. 25 years ago, we responded to the crash of Alaska 261, and the chaplain program was so instrumental in helping the victims, family members of that crash, the first responders who had to respond to horrific scenes out in the ocean and here on the military base. So thank you so much for your service and all you've done for our city.
Yes, thank you for your 25 years of dedicated service. That is outstanding. I understand chaplain duties, as Navy has their own chaplains as well, and they're always called at the most critical times. So thank you for your service.
And thank you for your service. But I'd like to say thank you to your wife. As a PK, I understand what it is when your spouse has to go and take care of other people all the time. And so thank you for your service as well and your family service. All right, we'll move on to the next presentation. Chief Federico.
Yes, thank you. And so the next presentation will be presented by Chief Federico regarding what we're calling our second phase of developing our culture of wellness within the police department.
Good evening again, everyone. If you remember, part of the 5 focus areas I had was employee wellness, and employee wellness as a priority. And even to that note, we as a team put together our vision, mission, and values last year. And in the values, we are one of the unique police departments that amongst our values of respect, integrity, compassion, courage, we also listed employee enrichment and wellness. And our definition for that is empowering and motivating employees to grow in a team where none of us are smarter than all of us, and empowering employees to achieve their best possible health and morale. So, peer support. We were blessed to have a chaplain program in this department for many years, but missing from a true wellness campaign within the department was a dedicated peer support team. The history in peer support in private industry is, you will find some in hospitals and trauma centers. But history of peer support in law enforcement and fire and other public safety agencies really took off about 20 years ago. I think the first time I sat in a stress debrief was in this room after the Alaska Airlines crash. And we came together as an organization and brought in a new peer support team in the county, which was Ventura PD's at the time. And it was a very powerful stress debrief. And that was my first opening to this thing called peer support and stress debriefs. And so then I went to Santa Monica PD, where there was a well-established peer support team, and I had the ability, I got recruited onto that team quickly getting there, and then I led that team for most of my 20 years down there. We became a nationally recognized peer support team. So I knew when I came home here, one thing I wanted to implement was a strong peer support team and wellness campaign. So that is our history. We had not had one other than our chaplain support, and we did have uses of a contracted psychologist to provide services within the department that we contracted with. So 2 things we had to do. We had to develop a policy because in the state in recent years, we got confidentiality for those employees that are peer supporters. And we had to make sure we had a policy in place to support the program, support the confidentiality, support the work and the efforts of the peer supporters, and that people understand what it's there for. So the department chose its first 2 peer supporters, and I put it out to their peers to choose who it was. And just to give you an idea of the culture of the organization, they picked 2 tenured employees that were also supervisors. And that's not normal, but that's what the team chose. And they had chose Roque Lopez Jr. and Baltazar Tapia, 2 people that were looked at as big brothers in the organization. And that's who the majority chose to be their peer supporters. So we put them through a lot of training, and we went through a lot this year, going back to what we were facing in the community with storms, to the death of an employee, to some other crises within the department, and they stepped up, and they stepped up every time. So we contracted, again, we had an outside psychologist that we had allowed folks to go see for services, but I ramped that up. I brought in one of the best in the nation, and it's the Counseling Team International. And one thing they offer is confidential sessions, and it is being used by your employees. And these sessions are for them and their family members to get through any family crisis or work traumas that they're trying to process and deal with. Because folks, if we want compassionate, respectful police employees on the streets, we have to make sure that we treat everything they see and do to this abnormal job, because their responses as human beings is very normal, but it's an abnormal job. So they're gonna have traumas, and we're gonna have things that we need to bring to the surface, and some folks will need some sessions, and some folks will need just open on-site discussions and debriefs. So bringing the confidential sessions, they can contact TCI themselves, or they can go through their peer supporters. And we have a great confidential program with them that funds it at a minimal cost. However, we don't know who's seeing who for what, and that's what keeps it confidential. If you want your employees to come forward, especially in a law enforcement culture, you gotta keep it confidential. So on-site critical stress debriefs, we've already utilized that too with TCI. We've had some difficult incidents involving children, and difficult incidents involving death. We can bring in a therapist or psychologist from TCI, and they will do an on-site debrief with our folks. Bring them into a room and allow them to open up and talk about it. It's called processing our traumas. So if we process these traumas, they don't linger on us and make us the crusty copper on the street that you don't want to see. This is how we process, we get things out, and we do it as a team, as a PD family. It also tends to bring your teams together. Supervisor management consultation. Any one of us, supervisors, managers, can call if we have an employee that we think is struggling with something, or they're performing great and now they're not, and is it because there's something going on at home, or they're looking at the job differently, or they had a issue with something in the field that they're not processing, and we can contact them and get some guidance. And these things are available 24/7. And then the trainings. We can send them to mindfulness training, we can send them to literally breathing training. There is, our peer supporters go to a lot, but we have some available for our employees. We are looking at things like mobility training. So some of the things we did internally to change our environment, in addition to bringing TCI and peer support, was communication centers, regardless of how busy they are, there are times of the day where they have that spontaneousness to be busy, and it's very stressful. So we realize how we move patrol to cover the busy times where the highest volume of calls are in order to be an effective response for the community. We also realize we gotta look at the dispatch communication center to make sure that we are adding staffing where it needs to be, so one person isn't having the majority of stressful day because one or two people are trying to juggle the most critical points, but we can move some staffing around, which we did to allow folks to get up and walk around in the room, take a break, step out, especially after a difficult call. We've done a lot of things in the environment. That's a small station and it's 50 years old. And after the remodels, after the floods, we weren't sure we were ever going to get the gym back that they had many years ago. So we have a lot of needs in the new world of law enforcement and technology, and you keep building out a small space. But we pulled it off. We crammed in a small gym, and we have some great grant money from the state to spend on just that, employee wellness. So we're buying a great wall-mounted fitness machine that the team picked out themselves. They researched. And then we're also going to get a good treadmill with a TV in front of them. So even if a dispatcher wants to take their break and go relieve some stress on a treadmill while somebody else is covering the shift and they take their break, they can do it. And the gym is great for those that want to come into work early before traffic, and they work out and they jump in the shower and then they go in the field to protect you all. However, some of them love to de-stress immediately after work, before they go home to their families, and they hit that machine and they get all the stress out and they take a shower and they drive home, and they're great when they walk in the door. So there's a lot of reasons to make sure we have one available for them and that it's well equipped. And fortunately, we have some grant money to spend on that. If you also notice that we're almost finished out building out the station after the remodel, after the floods and everything. And it's a good ergonomic workspace. It's a very open workspace. It's a very friendly environment. Something that I learned from Chief Jackie Seabrooks down at Santa Monica was she pointed out to us that we can no longer just accept that a building's 50 years old and you walk in and you got to use duct tape to fix patches and stuff. If you want people to be comfortable in their workplace, you've got to invest in that workplace. And so we have. We're making it very comfortable, sensible expenditures, but we've made it comfortable and open workspace. Our next steps on our wellness, as we've spent this past year building all the things I just told you, we're going to go into some monthly campaigns. And that's usually after the holidays. It's a good time to start the nutrition campaign. So like, for example, for February, all of us will be able to present through the campaign through the month to each other who's got some of the best nutrition ideas, whether it's the Mediterranean diet, which is taking off right now, whether it's us intermittent fasters, whether it's the keto folks. There's all kinds of things out there. And the way I changed my diet and everything was from a wellness program at my former agency, and I started to listen and I got to pick whose was the best and what worked for me. Fitness. Now we're gonna get that gym up and running, get that equipment, and there'll be some fitness challenges. And it can always be a fun, competitive nature, but we might have some fitness challenges amongst the team, but we're gonna push some great exercises. It doesn't have to be what I call the cult of CrossFit. Honestly, it's really like there's a whole group of people that are everything CrossFit, and that's how they live. Well, it doesn't necessarily work for me. I prefer the old school method of rotating through my machines on a timed matter. And if you have something that works for you, maybe talk to somebody else about it and get them on your routine. So mobility and ergonomics. I've seen great success in mobility training in employees. Every city should look at it for not just their police employees, but public works or anybody else. So there's a lot of good mobility training out there. I've taken some very tenured police officers in my past practices and shown them how they can lay on a mat with a good teacher and show them how a tennis ball on the ground can change their life. Maybe we reduce some of those injuries and reduce some of the strain that we get as we get older carrying all the equipment. Ergonomics, I talked about some of the changes in the department. So when you have a coach come in that specializes in ergonomics and reminds everybody that just because we're tough coppers and we have to jump out of cars doesn't mean we can't turn with both knees first and step out when you have to on most occasions, or how you're sitting at your chair, or in the world of cell phones, everybody's forgetting, and of course we have to use them at work too. Everybody's forgetting there's a lot of ergonomics involved in doing bad things to your body when you spend time on these electronics. And then the mindfulness and stress relief. Breathing is very powerful in trying to teach our folks not just breathing in a stressful situation to control your actions, but just lowering your blood pressure at night. Just at several times of the day, work on some mindfulness breathing. Then there's several other categories of mindfulness on how we spend our days, what we're taking in through our eyes, goes back to our nutrition. But there's all kinds of realms that we're going to introduce our folks to see what they might take an opportunity to look into. And then as much stress relief as we can. And I do plan to send our folks to some of our stress relief, some team building workshops and stuff, and some of those will build out also some stress relief. So understand this has been something we've worked at since I arrived. We've built out a lot, but there's more work to do, which will be these campaigns over this next year. And then thanks to all the support in the city, unofficially, we have a therapy dog in the station. And anybody who's got to belly rub this guy on the streets or when you run into him, he is a true hugger, and he immediately reduces stress when you bring him into dispatch. So there's a lot more to do, and we're enjoying it. But honestly, we didn't realize this guy would have the impact that he does in the station and in the community with how much love he gives. So that's been great. City Manager, anything to add to that one? All right, folks.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? No questions?
All right, folks. Thank you.
Do you have a question? Hold on just a minute.
Really appreciate the risk management 101, identifying mental health as being a key component of a good police force, and all the things that you're doing. You identified, you're bringing resources, and you're not just telling people to suck it up, And
No suck it up, buttercup.
no more of that, right? We're all human. We all get affected by these abnormal things. I mean, just for me, reading about some of the things that our police encounter is quite difficult. And then one question, is that machine available for council stress? Just kidding.
No, I think risk management said no. Back me up on that. No.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilmember. Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I noticed that the title of this presentation was the second phase of developing culture of wellness within the police department. The first phase, was that your peer?
Yes.
Your peer employees, and then the counseling team that was part of that too? Okay. Is there going to be a phase 3, a phase 4?
Well, it's just...
Where do you want to take this wellness program? What's your future ideas for that?
The vision of the department will be set by the department as we get through that second phase. So if they see something else they want to bring aboard, it would be an easy sell to me. But I think once we get through these campaigns, they're going to see a lot of what's best practice out there right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem.
Chief, thank you for your presentation. I do have a question. The peer-to-peer counseling, how many officers have actually participated in that? It's been active?
Yeah, several. So we maintain the confidentiality, so I can't give you any exact numbers, nor can I give anybody exact topics that were helped through. But I can say it has been utilized. I mean, some of the officers, if you get to talk to them one-on-one, may open up and tell you how in the first month of implementation, and I mean the first month, not even like 3 weeks, we did some pretty serious intervention to help folks out, and they are, a year later, very healthy, happy peace officers in your community, being compassionate, respectful. We needed some TLC when we had a dispatcher die of cancer. We lost Ivan, and that affected the department greatly. And we are one of those high-stress injuries where we will always, home issues will surface, whether it's your teenage child who goes to school one day and they find out that their parent's a police officer, and then their friends tell them, well, your dad's or mom is the devil because they shouldn't be a police officer, which was a huge slap in the face to this industry several years ago, especially when you're being compared to something that's happening thousands of miles away. So how do you help that family dynamic heal so this person can go to street and help people? And we have specialists at TCI that deal with children of public safety employees that can come in and go, identify what's going on, and this may be what's causing it. We might have somebody that was married before they got into law enforcement. And then we change, as everybody says, we change. And so we want that marriage to last through this career. So they might have needed somebody that specializes in public safety marriages to help them say, this is how your spouse has changed, but this is what you can do when they get home. And there's a whole routine for that. And there's a lot of tools to use, a lot of tools you can use to make things work when you think this person's changed too much and it's beyond a marriage, and it's not. So, and there is always an occasion where we've just seen too much. I will tell you, I didn't have the peer support and stress debriefs as my first 10 years as a peace officer here, but I had a lot of it at Santa Monica. So I could tell you, going back 10 years, so 20-something years on in the job, if I'm a field supervisor and I'm hearing the drowning baby call come in, it's not one that I had gone to in recent years. It's the ones from the beginning of my career that never got processed. We never got help for. We didn't open up, we didn't talk about it. Those are the ones that come back, and they're sitting in the back of your brain. But all the other ones that we went to a stress debrief about, or we talked to a therapist about, and they talked to you about processing it, and we made it go away. It's gone. We don't just want our folks to survive this career and get to retirement. We want them to thrive in this career and get to retirement. You know, it's so there's been help there. So, but we maintain that confidentiality respectfully.
No, it sounds very positive. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I did have one question, and you mentioned the confidentiality, understand that. But in a lot of programs, there is a level to where it becomes so that it's not confidential anymore.
Right, so we got a law passed several years ago in the state that provides, it's not the full privilege communication that you would have with clergy or lawyer or doctor, but there is limited confidentiality. So those matters that become criminal in nature, you'll begin to lose some of that. So obviously that would be something that comes up. But yes, there is some limitation. However, with the psychologists too, that's just with the peer supporters, but they do have doctors and psychologists that they can speak to as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.
We're going to move to our third presentation, City Manager.
Yeah, and the third presentation is a proclamation for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I believe Mayor Pro Tem Lopez is going to actually read the proclamation. And then after he does that, I wanted to just kind of give an invitation for the event in Oxnard. So we will start with the proclamation.
So this is the proclamation, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Whereas on January 15th, 1929, revered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia. And whereas Dr. King was a transformational leader of the American Civil Rights Movement and one of the most influential orators for peace, equality, and human rights in the world history. And whereas Dr. King is remembered for dedicating his life in an unyielding faith and passion for justice, racial harmony, by championing the principles this nation was built upon, and a strong commitment to his beliefs of freedom, equality, and justice for all. And whereas Dr. King envisioned a society where individuals were not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And whereas Dr. King sacrificed his life to spread a message of universal equality and justice that was displayed by his efforts to end racial segregation and discrimination through civil rights, disobedience, and other nonviolent means, such as heroic leadership in the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott, the 1957 Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the 1963 March on Washington, and the Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965. And whereas Dr. King words continue to resonate with the world today by reminding us of the imperative to continue the fight for justice, equality, no matter the opposition, because the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moment of comfort and the convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. And whereas people throughout the world continue to be inspired by Dr. King's vision and words, his strength of character and compassion and his model for peace demonstrates and dialogue. And whereas in 1983, Dr. King became the first private citizen to be honored with the federal holiday, not just to celebrate his memory, but also to preserve his legacy, one that calls upon us all to exercise our moral authority, stand up against injustice, and protect our most sacred tenet of democracy. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme does hereby proclaim January 20th, 2025 as the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, proclaimed this 6th day of January 2025.
Thank you. And we actually had invited the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee of Ventura County to attend today and invite our community to the event, but they actually are meeting right now coordinating this event. So we had a little bit of a timing snafu, but so they're working hard on this event, but we told them that we'd still get the word out and we'd still invite our community to participate. And so we have it up on the screen. It is Monday, January 20th, starting at 8 a.m. There's the Freedom March from Plaza Park at 5th and C Street in Oxnard that will march to the Oxnard Performing Arts Center. And then at 9 a.m., there's the observance program that is going to occur at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center with keynote speaker James Joyce III, and the sorority speech contest winner Sebastian Kempton will be at the observance program. And so the committee made sure they let us know, invite everybody to this event, Monday, January 20th, 8 a.m. March and 9 a.m. program. So everybody's invited, and we'll try to figure out a few other ways to get that information out to anybody who maybe hasn't heard about it or isn't watching the meeting. But and we'll present our proclamation to the committee between now and then. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gama.
Yeah, just over the last several years, I've spent Martin Luther King holiday in Ojai with the Ojai Youth Foundation, and I think I'm probably going to be out there again this year, and it's a wonderful a day. And I just want to make mention that if you don't see me at our event, know that I'm with the kids of Ojai. We've developed a relationship, and the theme out there in Ojai is vitality in community, and the quote of Dr. King is marching forward together. And so I find Hueneme Beach Cleanup introduced me to these kids, and we've had a relationship now for, I think, 4 or 5 years. But it's just wonderful to participate in any venue where you're focusing on the message and the attitudes and where we are today. And it's hard to believe that when I was born in 1963 that there was considerable discrimination still occurring in our country. And so I'm so proud of the fact of where we are today and how we have, look at our diverse group up here, and then being able to reach out in the community and participate in the messaging and the vision of MLK, which should be the vision of all of us. And I believe it is, and I think we're making great progress, and I love being a part of this country and this community. So thank you, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Thank you. And if I may, I'm going to put in a shameless plug. For the, there's a speech expo winner from the Oxnard Elementary Schools who competed at his school and won first place, then competed against 20 other elementary schools, and he is the winner. So he will be the guest. He's not the guest speaker, but he will be doing his speech from the Speech Expo on that day. So you really don't want to miss that. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the consent calendar. We will now consider items on the consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless council member has a request to remove an item. May I have a motion and a second to approve? If there are no items, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we will now move on to public, there's no public hearing. Business items?
Yes, and Deputy City Manager Charles Peretz will be presenting the first business item, which is related to the city's entry into the Clean Power Alliance. And at this point, we have a couple of decisions that the City Council will be making as the last step to enter the Clean Power Alliance. So I'll let Mr. Peretz present from there.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. As the City Manager indicated, agenda item number 8 pertains to the council's selection of a default energy rate with the Clean Power Alliance and the designation of a city representative and alternate to serve on the Clean Power Alliance Board of Directors. The report includes 3 recommendations for the council to consider. The first is the recommendation that the council select the Clean Power tier as the default tier for electricity consumers in Port Hueneme. The Clean Power tier utilizes 50% renewable energy sources and offers rates that are comparable to SCE's current rates. Rates for energy supplied to streetlights are calculated differently and would increase the city's costs significantly. As such, staff is recommending that streetlight accounts remain serviced by SCE. Lastly, the recommendation includes the council discuss and take action to appoint a council member that would serve as the city's representative on the CPA's board of directors, and as well appoint an alternate that would serve in the representative's absence. The alternate may be another council member, a member of the public, or a member of city staff. By way of quick background, March 20th, 2023, the city received a presentation from the Clean Power Alliance, and subsequently the council authorized staff to move forward with a feasibility study to assess the city's ability to join CPA. In November of that year, the city adopted an ordinance regarding its intent to join CPA's Joint Powers Agreement, and the CPA subsequently held a public hearing to authorize the city's inclusion. In March of 2024, the Public Utilities Commission certified that action, allowing Port Hueneme to begin receiving service from the Clean Power Alliance October 2025. The Clean Power Alliance offers 3 different renewable energy tiers. While they each have different price points and amounts of renewable energy, all 3 offer more renewable energy than Southern California Edison. The Clean Power tier, which is the tier being recommended by staff, provides energy from 50% renewable energy sources and is offered at the same rate that SCE offers. As noted earlier, rates for streetlights are calculated differently, and in order to avoid adverse impacts to the city's budget, staff is recommending that those accounts remain with SCE. A key component of the transition to the Clean Power Alliance is public outreach and education. The Public Utilities Commission requires that the Clean Power Alliance send 4 written notices to impacted customers, 2 before the transition and 2 after the transition. In addition to that requirement, the city intends to work with CPA to utilize various city resources to help spread the word. This includes use of the city's website, Facebook and Instagram accounts, the monthly newsletter, flyers at public counters at City Hall and the Community Center, utility bill inserts, and training front desk staff to answer questions and educate the public. Additionally, the city will coordinate a meeting to be held at Hueneme Bay and at least one other community meeting to help educate residents and answer questions they may have. One of the benefits of joining the Clean Power Alliance is local control. Each of the participating agencies is allowed to have a designated representative on the board of directors. The board of directors considers rates, energy procurement, and customer programs. Board meetings are held every first Thursday of the month at 2 p.m., and board members have the option of participating either in person or virtually at one of 4 identified locations. The one that's closest to Port Hueneme would be the Ventura County Hall of Administration. That provides the overview of the staff presentation. We do have representatives from the Clean Power Alliance in attendance. We have one physically here and two on Zoom that may be able to answer specific questions the council may have.
Great. Does council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Kama?
Yes. I'm not an electrical engineer, and I certainly don't know everything, but this is a really nebulous concept, and I'm having buyer's remorse because I don't understand. I understand transmission, I understand batteries, but are we, in the short term, are we okay? But in the long term, when demand increases and the needs for more electricity is upon us, are we going to be able to meet that need? And I'm looking at the clean energy representative.
So we do have Gina Goodhill here from the CPA. And Gina, if you are the person to best answer that question, we'd ask you to come up. We also have Ted Bernacki and Karen Schmidt on Zoom. So if they're the best people to answer that question, we'd ask that one of them.
And so in follow-up to what I just said, so my concern is that as time moves forward, that we're locking residents into a higher price for energy down the road. And I'm just wondering if you could help us understand, because my understanding is that transmission lines are going to be the same. It's just a matter of where are you getting the electricity from. And could there be a time in the future where demand outstrips supply? Come up to the microphone, I guess, please.
I was going to say, Councilmember, I'm happy to answer that question, but I will note that our CEO is on the Zoom, so he may be the best person here to answer that. So I'll let him take that.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Councilman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. So, so reliability and demand is governed by a law in California called resource adequacy. We at Clean Power Alliance are subject to exactly the same rules and regulations around reliability and meeting demand as Southern California Edison is. We've met every resource adequacy requirement in the month and have never had a problem meeting demand. Our rates have been and remain competitive. So I'm pretty pleased with our track record so far over the last 7 years in meeting those reliability needs. And I can assure you that your residents will not, the reliability of their service would not be impacted.
So is CPA like a broker, the middleman in between where the energy is sourced and then bringing it to our community?
So we source our power from private entities. In fact, most of the power in California is now owned by the private sector, including most of the power that Edison buys. So we are operating in that same competitive market, and will put as much energy as our entire system demands onto the grid, just like Edison does.
One further question is, as the more and more city managers drive electric vehicles, anyways, I'm just taking a cheap shot, sorry. But my question is, like, let's just say the electric vehicle market goes to 50% of all the cars in California. Will we be able to supply that needed energy to power those batteries?
Yes, sir. We do internal demand forecasts looking at vehicle sales as well as registrations of our customers in our service territory. We are predicting a significant amount of increased demand and are planning for it and procuring additional energy ahead of time. We also offer both special rates and programs for our electric vehicle drivers who also are our customers, to get them to encourage them to save money by charging at different times of the day when energy is clean and cheaper and more plentiful than certain hours of the day. So we're both doing it at a system-wide level, but we're also engaging with our customers at the individual level to help them save money by impacting the time of day that which they charge, and actually paying them to charge at times of the day when energy is more plentiful.
Great. Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we do Ms. Hernandez first, and then we'll come back to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peretz, for your presentation, and thank you, members of CPA, for being here tonight. Councilman Gama brought up a question regarding cost of services through CPA, and it's been my understanding that I'm a little concerned how this is going to be rolled out to residents, because there's a lot of rumors out there about this costing more than their SCE charges. And it's my understanding that they may see an increase on their bills in the beginning, but that it will later on fall off. Is there any truth to that? That it will level off after time?
So depending on what rate a customer chooses, or in the case of the decision you're going to make this evening about what the default rate is, whether or not they would a typical customer would either save money or pay no more than they're currently paying, or pay up to 5% more if they were to choose 100% green power. So it really depends on the rate that that an individual customer chooses, or the rate that you all choose to have as your default, because the fact of the matter is most customers will go with the rate that you all choose. So if you were to choose lean power, the typical customer would save 1% on their bills. If you choose clean power, they'll pay the same amount. And if that you choose 100% green power, or they choose 100% green power, they would pay 5% more. Though our board at the end of last year set those rate comparisons, and those rate comparisons will stay in effect for at least the first 9 months of service. And after that, you all would be involved in setting the rates for the future. With the exception of 1 year, we've always had at least one rate cheaper than Edison, and a customer can always choose to be on that rate.
Very good, thank you.
Councilmember Perez.
I have two questions. The first one is related to the city's increase in potential costs if we were to go with it. What is the reason for the significant increase in costs if the city were to opt in for the program?
Yes, so that's just for the meters that, or the service for your streetlights. All the other meters for the city are those same bill comparisons. Streetlights are an interesting, long, twisted history, but within the Edison framework, the streetlights get a significant subsidy that we are unable to match. And so that's why we generally recommend that unless a city has strong desire to zero out their carbon footprint, that they consider opting them out or not beginning service with them. So Karen Schmidt, who's on the line, has been talking with your staff about that in order to ensure that there are no additional costs to the city.
Thank you. And the opt-out and opt-in option, that's my second question. We know that when we go into this program, all residents in the city will automatically be opted into the program. How easy, because I know there's a lot of concerns from some residents who may not be interested in sticking with the program, how easy is it for them to opt out, and is there a charge for them to decide to do that?
Sorry, I was you'd think after 6 years I would have been able to find the unmute button. Um, but I found it. So it is very easy to opt out. It can take, it takes less than 5 minutes. People can do it either online or by calling our call center. So we have a space on our website. They can send an email or they can call the call center. Via the call center, there's an automatic, interactive voice response. They can do it or they can talk to a rep. We have a 60-person call center here locally. It's not an outsourced to any foreign country. It's unionized. It's a high performing call center. Folks can opt out quite easily. And we generally do not have trouble with meeting those requests.
What about the charge? Is there a charge for a resident to decide to opt out?
There is no charge to opt out from CPA. After the first 60 days of service, Edison can charge a fee. The current fee is about 50 cents.
To go back into the Edison system?
Go back into Edison after the first 60 days.
Is there a deadline? Say we start this program, all residents are opted in. Is there a timeline when they have to opt out before they're committed to the program, or can they opt out whenever?
They can opt out at any time. We generally see most opt-outs taking place within that first 120 days when we're noticing, generally the first 6 months. Then people get used to it and it remains quite stable, but people can opt out at any time.
Okay, no further questions for me.
Thank you. Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem, and then we'll come back to you. Thank you.
So just so the residents are clear, and this is how I'm understanding this rollout, is we're going to provide a base tier for Port Hueneme, but the residents do have options of selecting their own tier group. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
The base, the tier that you are deciding is for the customer who does nothing.
Correct. Okay. So SCE does have discounts for people with, say, low income, the mask for sleep apnea mask. Do we have any of those incentives as well?
So, so you're speaking of the CARE program and the medical baseline program. Though if customers are already on those programs through Edison, they will automatically be ported over. And they'll get the same discount on their electricity bills that they currently do.
Okay, and last question. For people who generate their own renewable energy, solar panels, is the rates very similar to what SCE is offering?
They are similar. We have two additional benefits for our customers who have solar panels. The first is that if they are net exporters of energy over the course of the year, we will pay them an additional 10% above what Edison pays. We also have a rebate program for home batteries. So if you already have solar panels and you want to add batteries, or you're adding new solar panels and you want to add a battery, we have a $750 rebate for a for a regular customer, and $1,000 if you're a low income customer.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Gama.
So you just triggered something on me that the city, we have solar power here, right? And so are we a net exporter of energy? The city of Port Hueneme?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so we're consuming all the solar energy that we produce.
Yes.
And therefore we don't.
And we pay an electric bill. So.
And we pay an electric bill. Yeah. So have we penciled out the savings? Like, is this working out for us?
So that's one of the reasons why we're recommending the tier we're recommending, is because it would be anticipated to be the same cost. So no additional cost, no savings. The council has the options, though, to either choose more renewable at an additional cost or less renewables at savings, but we recommended the middle tier, which would be more renewable without additional cost.
Right, and then here's the part that it's a little funky. So we're faced with making a decision tonight, which is pretty clear. We have to exercise our fiduciary responsibility and save the city from 365,000 to 500,000. I think it's a no-brainer, right? But by doing that, we're opting, and I guess I heard that streetlights are complicated. Edison subsidizes, but we're going to opt out of the program to enjoy savings.
We aren't opting out of the program. We are in the program, but we are opting our streetlights out of the program. Everything else the city has will still be in the program, and it's only because of the streetlight, the very specific streetlight subsidy issue. So, and the that would impact our budget, but also impact the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Which is not something
right.
we
So
want to
we clearly need to go with that. So then, and this is complicated. So again, I'm trying to answer the questions that the ratepayers, our residents, may have. And I know there's a couple out there because I saw a little bit of conversation going on today. So is every ratepayer going to be rolled into this program? And then if you want out, you have to opt out. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we're being told that it's really easy to opt out. You make a phone call or you go on a web page and it's real simple.
Yeah, and I'll just make one positive note is that at this point, early on, this was kind of like a leap of faith, but at this point, every city around us has already joined. The rest of Ventura County, I believe all cities in Ventura County have already joined and have already opted in.
Okay.
And dozens of cities in LA County and Orange County.
So if you have it in your budget to pay 5% more of your electricity because you're going to go 100% clean energy, then go for it. But if your budget can't handle that and things are tight, then you could go with the least costly option, which is less than 100% green energy.
Correct. And one of the points I know that Clean Power Alliance used to really highlight that I thought was a good point to keep in mind is right now you don't have any choice without being in the Clean Power Alliance. You have Southern California Edison and that's it. With this, you have choices. You have Southern California Edison if you don't want to be part of this, or you could opt to 3 different tiers within Clean Power Alliance. So it actually is choices. I think the thing that is hard to get used to and the one part that's scary for people is by opting in, everybody moves to it, but then you actually have 4 choices essentially that you don't have right now.
So the challenge for the 5 of us is to be able to answer questions accurately when they come at us in the public. And that's where I feel we may need a little help. I did see some conversation today and I had to recall like, well, wait a minute, where are we at with this? And trying to recall what we did. And so can we break it down? Do you have any material for us to give us the talking points that we could get out on social media, and hopefully the 5 of us could be not experts, but be able to answer the basic questions.
Yeah, and that's what part of what we talked about with Clean Power Alliance was making sure that we get materials to do outreach, and we're looking to try to schedule. I think we're trying to do two community meetings to try to help get that word out too, because maybe bearing the lead is if somebody's concern is purely savings, they actually have an option to save money that doesn't exist without joining.
Right, and I want to be able to, as a council person, be able to direct them to that path.
Yeah.
Very easily without complicating the situation.
Got it.
Okay. Go back to you, Charles.
I just
You have-
wanted to add that the next phase after the council were to take action is to move towards the public outreach and the partnership between CPA and the city. The city would serve as the vehicle. As mentioned before, we have many different avenues to promote the information, but the resource, the information, Gina is kind of, that is her expert area. and she can speak a little bit to that, but the documents, the FAQs, the informational sheets, we would get those source documents from CPA and distribute that through the city's means.
And I'll just say briefly, I think Charles covered it really well, but this is sort of the next step before we can really do that outreach is the decision you're making today. Once we know the preferred energy option, we'll be able to really launch that outreach. And so as requested, that includes a whole slew of items that we really hope the city can use and that we will use to help make sure that people are as aware as possible of this change. So there's talking points that we'll provide, there's sample social media, there's a sample press release. We like to do at least 2 community meetings, so we really rely on the city and staff to know what those meetings look like, whether it's an Earth Day event or maybe a community fair or whatever it is that makes the most sense in the city. In addition to that, Charles mentioned there's notices that go out. Those notices not only explain how to opt out, they also explain how to opt up if you want to, how to opt down, what the benefits are of Clean Power Alliance. There's fact sheets we provide, there's frequently asked questions. So really, once this decision's made, we are very excited to partner with the city on whatever the outreach is that you think best suits the city, and really building off the experience of the past 35 cities that we've already had join Clean Power Alliance.
Great, thank you. I think we've heard everyone's questions. Great.
So there's been some social media chatter. Can we make sure that, and is it your practice to monitor some of the neighborhood chats so that you could nip misinformation, misunderstandings in the bud? And because it came up today on a Port Hueneme neighborhood group, I believe. I'm not sure, but I know Luis Mendez commented. And so basically I just want to make sure that we're looking out for avenues to jump in and nip misinformation in the bud if there is in fact some.
Yeah, so once the outreach starts, in addition to myself, we have someone who is, we have another person, Joe Cabral, who will be specifically working to monitor what's going on, monitor chatter. He lives in Oxnard, so very close by. And I'll say, it gets tricky with social media. With Nextdoor specifically, that's something that we really work closely with the council and staff on, because only people that live in a particular city can see what happens in Nextdoor. So if it's chatter on Nextdoor, then we work closely with city staff and with council members to really monitor that. If it's other types of chatter, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that we do have access to. But either way, we are well-versed in making sure that we're looking at sort of what chatter's out there and then making sure we have talking points to address it.
Great. If there are no other questions, we'll move to public comments. Madam Clerk?
We have a public comment from Luis Mendez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and staff. I'm glad I got to hear all that because now my kind of speech has changed with the answers, or questions being answered. Just 2 little things of criticism, I guess, to the city, for improvement. One, I don't like, and a lot of people don't like the mandatory opt-in where you have to opt out. I think to require us to go do our homework and go and take steps to get back to where we want, I think is inconsiderate. And the other criticism is the way this program has been rolled out. I'm actually sold on the energy and the environment and stuff like that, but I think the information that has been passed to the community has not been very fluid, and it looks like you guys already voted on the ordinance before any of these questions were answered. So I feel like you guys did it backwards because it's like we're already there. So even though we may have more questions, I did see online people were putting links up. Oh, go look here to answer your question. Well, it's like, why do we have to work to find answers for something we didn't opt to be changed to? So like I said, that kind of changed my opinion a little bit just listening to the answer. So I appreciate that, but I just think a little bit more communication and the fluidity of it would be could be better received to the community by you guys doing a little bit more work on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
City Manager.
Yeah, if I could just note, maybe it is helpful to kind of go back. I know the slide had the history, but we had to go through a multi-step process because the last step was that Clean Power Alliance had to actually essentially approve our application to get into the program. And so that's what's been happening over the last maybe 7 or 8 months. Maybe I might not be exactly right about that time frame, but that's sort of that awkward pause. And so we had talked about joining it in the past. We had talked about what we expected the rates to be, but we had notification from Clean Power Alliance during the holidays that we had been accepted in and that we were ready to take the next step. And so we are bringing it forward. And then I think to our Clean Power Alliance partners' point is, and now we're ready to start getting the information out to people about what those rates are actually going to be here in Port Hueneme, but we need to pick our rate to tell people what that default is. So it's sort of, it is the process. I think the criticism that is fair, and I think we all feel this way, is the part that probably is going to frustrate people is the automatically being opted in. I wish that didn't have to happen, but that is the way it works from a utility standpoint. So it is just the way it has to happen. We don't have the option to join it without opting everybody in. So that's the one drawback at this point with the program. But as we said earlier, 35 cities have gone through this process. I know Clean Power Alliance at one point had put out some numbers. I don't think this is anything that shouldn't be repeated, but I think it was something like 90% of people don't opt out. And so once they get the bill and they see the difference, they are happy with it. So it's nobody likes to be forced to do anything, but the vast majority of people are staying in the program and are happy with it after it happens. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, does that conclude the public comments?
Yes.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to select the Clean Power tier as the City of Port Hueneme's default renewable energy tier with the Clean Power Alliance, which based on estimates provided by Clean Power Alliance is anticipated to keep costs at the same level as standard Southern California Edison rates. 2, authorize staff to take action needed to exempt the city's street lights from the Clean Power Alliance due to those being assessed differently, resulting in an anticipated significant cost. And 3, appoint a city representative and alternate to the Clean Power Alliance Board of Directors. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll move approval of the recommendation, but do we have to have a discussion on the appointment now? Okay.
We'd recommend, yeah, including within that an appointment for a representative and an alternate.
Great.
I second.
Okay, so I'd like to throw my name in the hat for being a primary member of the board for CPA, and I'll tell you why I'm interested. I also chair the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, so I think it's really important that those two entities tie in. And I'm also able to attend in person the meetings that are held on Thursday afternoons at 2 o'clock in downtown Los Angeles, since I'm already there attending the Southern California Association of Governments meeting. And I've been encouraged by other cities who sit on the CPA to join that group, and they said it's much to our advantage to do so in person and attend those meetings in person, because there's a lot more value in the discussions that are had if you're there in person.
I'd like to second both motions, if that's okay.
So
I don't know
so it
about
would have
an
been
alternate.
So
yeah, I was going to say, we would need to decide if we want to have an alternate, and B, I know that was a proposal. I didn't know if I didn't catch if that was a motion.
Maybe can we do this? Can we do 2 motions, approve 1 and 2, and then go to number 3?
That's a good idea.
Yes. So is there a motion and a second for number 1 and 2, recommendations 1 and 2 only?
So moved, so moved. Oh, just for one only? Okay.
Just 1 and 2. So is there a second for 1 and 2? Thank
Second
you.
for 1 and 2.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, can we get a vote?
All in favor for those of 1 and 2?
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Great. So now we'll go to number 3, appoint a city representative and alternate to the Clean Power Alliance Board of Directors.
I'd like to Councilmember Hernandez to be the primary. And I'm not interested in alternate, so if anyone is, I will nominate you.
Is there
Mayor?
interest in an alternate? Anyone interested in the alternate?
I will just note too, if it's, I know the LA part kind of scares people away. So there is the ability to attend locally at the Ventura County Government Center if you aren't able to go to LA. So if that's scaring anybody away, that is, there's an option there.
And can we say that time again?
2 o'clock, first Thursday of the month.
Okay.
And a staff member can also serve as an alternate.
Could be a staff member, could be, some cities have appointed community members who were part of
Charles.
advocating for the program. So there's options.
Okay, so Mayor Pro Temp has volunteered to be the alternate. Okay, and with that, can we get a motion and a second for number 3?
Move to approve.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to number 9, City Council Liaison Committee appointments for 2025. City Manager?
Thank you. Yes, the next item is an item we do annually for each year. We review the City Council Liaison Committee appointments. We have a list which we are pulling up here, which shows last year's list of appointments. There are a couple of proposed changes, and then the council will have the option to make any preferred changes or modifications. But the changes that we recommend are basically based on things like committees that are no longer used, or if there's been a change in a position like the incoming mayor and mayor pro tem, for example. So the changes that we have identified and recommended were on the City of Port Hueneme and Oxnard Harbor District City Port Committee. The mayor and mayor pro tem typically serve, so we would recommend updating those with our new mayor and mayor pro tem. For the Southern California Association of Governments, per their bylaws, if a member of the city council is also a SCAG regional council district representative, that member by default is appointed to attend and be a voting member. The council has the option to change that if they choose to, but by default it's the member. So so we've reflected that. That would be an option council has. We had REACH has historically been on this list. However, this year or last year, the council agreed with REACH to have REACH no longer have a city appointment, so that is recommended to be removed from the list. Similarly, the Landscape Design Guidelines Update Committee project is complete, so we are recommending removing that from the list moving forward. And then we noted that the Clean Power Alliance is newly added, and we will update that with the appointments that the council just made. And so those are the changes that are recommended due to some other change, but each year the council could also discuss and decide whether there's just any desire to make any change or to alternate on agendas or committees. So with that, we've pulled the list up, and we can go through it as the council desires, but we recommend the council discusses and identify any changes.
Can I suggest that we start from the top of the list and just go down and discuss them that way? Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with continuing on with Beacon. I'm on the executive committee, and we have a lot of exciting changes coming up that I'd like to discuss a little later. And then I'm also California Joint Powers Insurance Authority. I'm also...
One by one.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and finish. And so So the alternate is council member.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. I'd like to make a motion that we switch the alternate and primary for Beacon. I've sat as an alternate for 6 years now, and even as an alternate, I've helped in organizing the annual SAN summits and participated in meetings and following what's going on. And I think just in the spirit of rotation, I would like the opportunity to serve as primary for Beacon. So I'd like to make a motion to do that. I'd need a second. Right.
Any other discussion about Beacon before we take a vote?
Did I get?
Wait, can we have a discussion?
Yes, we should have.
Okay, so not that I want to jump, but are you willing to surrender another primary in order to get to jump to a primary?
Surrender another primary? Well,
Another committee?
It just depends, because some of the committees are organized such where it may not, a surrender may not make sense.
It just don't want to be unfair with the committee appointments. Want to make sure that everybody gets a turn, right?
Right. And there's a lot that goes into deciding whether or not you can serve on a committee. You know, your schedule. You know, can you attend the meetings if you're working full time? There's transportation issues involved. So, we've never really as much as we try to balance it out, we also have to consider that some people cannot carry as many committees as others because of their work schedule or for other reasons.
I have a comment. Mayor?
Go right ahead,
I
Councilmember
think
Perez.
consistency is important. I think people that are on committees are involved in doing work. You know that the committees you sit on, you know the work you've been doing, you know the work that you're looking at ahead, and you've already been part of that discussion. You're already been part of those decision making. You already know what's happening, what happened before, and you know what's going to be happening, you know, ahead of time. So I think consistency is important when we're on these committees, especially with the work that's being done.
So was there not a motion? Where are we at on Beacon?
Yes, so this is a discussion.
Okay, and Madam Mayor, just may I say, before we actually take a vote on a motion, I know this one's a little bit different, if we can just call for public comment.
Let's do that.
And I will say, sorry, but there are no public comments. I just wanted to state that for the record.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm done.
So you're done. Did you have anything to say, Councilmember Gama?
I think Councilmember Hernandez made a motion to nominate herself. Was that what happened? And I didn't hear a second.
To switch.
I think at this point, we were having a discussion. Yes, she called for a vote.
Okay, I still haven't heard a second. So
All right. Are you still serving as the alternate?
I hope so, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other discussion on Beacon?
I would like to say that as an alternate on Beacon, and because of my involvement in helping with the SAN summits and other planning issues, I'd like to make sure that Councilman Gama includes me in those discussions because I was excluded last year.
don't think that's appropriate for an alternate, but I am on the executive committee with Beacon, and so, you know, the alternate is to fill in when the primary can't be there.
Not for Beacon, it's not. It's defined differently for Beacon.
Okay, well, I don't know what that means.
Well, Beacon
You attend most of the meetings, so as far as I'm concerned, and you don't have a problem in chiming in when you feel like it, so I don't see any need to even change the way we've been operating because you participate in the meetings as an alternate.
Okay, great, thank you. So for Beacon, Councilmember Hernandez has agreed to stay as the alternate, Councilmember Gama as the primary. Is there a motion and a second?
I motion.
Second.
Thank you. Can we get a vote, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Okay,
opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
great. So let's move to CJPIA. Currently, Councilmember Gama is the primary, and our former Councilmember Martinez was the alternate. You have Councilmember Gama. Is that something that you want to continue with? Or?
Yes, I am a associate in risk management, and I really appreciate the CGPIA and the programs that they bring. It is a little difficult assignment because their meetings are in La Palma, however, it's a real smooth operation. There's 126 members, and so if I can't make it to the La Palma meeting, it's there's always a quorum. So, but they do bring good programming that's available to all the council members, and so strongly encourage everybody to participate.
Great, and it looks like that's once a year.
Yeah.
And so is there anyone would like to serve as the alternate? As alternate? Great.
I'll move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And so City Port Standing Committee is customarily, yeah. And so we'll go to the Clean Air Alliance Board of Directors. We've just done that. That's resolved. Okay. Economic Development Collaborative. That primary is Councilmember Perez, and the alternate was Martinez.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
And that is third Thursday, 3:30, August and December. So it looks like, oh, they're dark August and December. So that's third Thursday.
I also serve on the executive committee for that as well.
Okay.
We need an alternate, though.
Is there an alternate, volunteer for an alternate? And that's third Thursday.
I can serve.
3:30 p.m. Thursday. Okay.
Great.
That's Lopez, Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Great. Next is Federal Outreach and Advisory Council. Councilmember Perez, is that something you want to continue with?
Sure, if there's nobody else interested.
Okay.
What is that?
And it looks like there's Monday, second Tuesday, 2 p.m. via Zoom, and there's 2 annual meetings.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Pro Tem Jess Lopez, because just due to his military experience, I think he'll have something to bring to the table.
So I want to leave that up to him because I know he's still employed, and this is at 2 o'clock. And so some of these may be more difficult.
Yeah.
That's just me saying out loud.
There's only really, other than that, the RDP is what I'm interested in. So I'm going to pass on the Federal Outreach and Advisory.
Okay, we'll leave it as vacant for now. Is there a motion for Councilmember Perez to serve?
So moved.
Well, I'll do the alternate.
Oh, you want to do the alternate?
Sure, I'll do
Sorry
the
about
alternate.
that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hernandez? Sorry about that. Can we get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
The next one is Gold Coast Transit. I'm serve as the primary. I'm currently the chair, so I'd like to remain on that one.
Move to continue.
And then alternate is Councilmember Hernandez. You want to continue with that? Gold Coast Transit?
They don't do their meetings on Zoom, do they?
No, they do not.
Yeah, so Wednesdays I'm out because I'm in Pasadena,
Okay,
so I
right.
wouldn't be a good alternate for you.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
And so it'd be nice to have an alternate. I haven't missed in 2 years, so if this is one of the ones that I would be okay with being vacant. Anyone?
Well,
10 a.m.
If
First
you need an
Wednesday.
alternate, I can do it.
Okay, all right.
but she's got perfect attendance.
So far.
Don't jinx yourself.
Okay, so is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next one, Port Hueneme Water Agency. That is 3 members and 1 alternate, 3 council member. It requires 3 council members and an alternate.
I'll stay the alternate.
Okay.
'Cause
I was hoping you would change with me.
No, I served 3 years on that committee, so a new guy gets the new.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll continue with that.
I'm good
As a
continuing. I
primary?
am.
Yeah, do you want to be on that?
No, thank you.
Okay. And so we'll leave it like it is then.
Well, the third was Martinez, so that,
Oh, the third was
can.
Martinez.
yeah, so we'd
Okay.
have to.
Have to have one more.
Third Monday.
Yeah, and that's before council
I can do
meeting.
that.
Okay. Great. And
Motion?
Perez? Great. Can we
Move
get
to
a-
approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
The Port Hueneme Housing Authority is all of us,
Yes.
so that's good.
Shall I make a motion?
Second.
We got it.
What's that? Do we need a motion for that?
No, we'll say council consensus.
Okay, great. And so the next one is RDP.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Pro Tem. I think he wanted to chair that.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Has primary or has alternate?
As primary.
Primary.
Great, I'm gonna step away. Do you want to continue as alternate?
Sure. I'm still on the
Does
strategic planning.
anyone else want to be the alternate? I don't want to pick out people myself. Okay, great, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move
So-
to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I had a question about the sister city.
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
comment on the sister city.
So the Sister City Committee had informed us that they were going to request, similar to Reach,
Reach, yeah.
separating and not being a city entity. They just haven't officially done it yet.
So we can do it
So,
now?
Yeah, we would, we will what we can do is we'll bring a consent item like on the next agenda to approve
that.
that change, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just for everybody's memory, the thing that was holding it up was them getting certified as a 501c3 and getting all that, and that is now done, I believe. So we should be able to make that change.
Right, and then just the background is that having 2 council members on a committee kind of creates a little bit of a Brown Act issue in that, there can't be collaboration with other council members, so.
Well, I don't agree with that premise.
But we did that on Reach, and I think that was the same premise for sister committee.
Because you see it throughout this list of committees where you've got 2 people, so.
Yeah, and well, the Sister City Committee in particular, and Reach in particular, the request was from those entities that they wanted to separate and not have a dedicated city spot. If you remember, the conversation was, they said that they would be open to having city representatives who wanted to join it and participate, but it just, the mandatory city spot, even if somebody's not interested in it, didn't really help either entity, so.
So we could still serve as individuals, as
Yep.
residents, but not as council.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we'll make that change.
Okay, great. Let's move down to SCAG. Currently Hernandez is primary, and there is no alternate.
I have a comment on that, Mayor.
SCAG?
So with SCAG, there are multiple SCAGs. Like, for instance, I'm on the Community Economic and Human Development. A SCAG, is that on there? Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
gonna be later.
Then never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, this was specifically, I think it's the regional council district representative.
Yeah, the ones that are up here are the ones that are appointed by council. The ones
it.
later, the council does not make those appointments.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
just didn't look down the list.
That's okay. And there is no alternate, but this is just an annual meeting? Is that
No,
correct?
this is the regular first Thursday of the month, and they do require this year that we meet in person. So it is once a month meeting. And I was initially invited to serve as the District 45 rep by Carmen Ramirez, and that District 45 includes Port Hueneme, Camarillo, and Oxnard.
Okay. Does anyone have a desire to serve on SCAG or is, oh, no? Okay, great. Can I get a motion and a second for for Councilmember Hernandez being primary?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Southern California Edison Government Advisory
Um,
Panel?
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mike.
Sorry. Southern California Edison Government Advisory Panel lists Hernandez, and there's no information on on the meeting area. Is that the case?
We meet as needed, but we do have fairly regular meetings, at least once a month. So, and I would very much like to continue serving on that committee due to the my role on VCREA and now CPA. I think all those issues tie in together.
Great. Did anyone else have no?
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Hernandez.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
We'll move on to VCOG, Ventura Council of Governments.
I'm open to giving up the lead spot, and I think this could be a good one for Mayor Pro Tem, only because we've been meeting at Cal State University, Channel Islands, which would be really easy for you to get to if you're interested. If not, and if Councilmember Hernandez would like to take the lead role, be fine with me.
I'll do either alternate or primary. VCOG ties right into SCAG, so there's.
I could be the alternate.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
And Ventura County Air Pollution District Advisory, that was a appointed position for Mr. Gama.
Yeah, it looks like it's a 4-year term. Yeah, and we only have a meeting when there's a proposed rule change, and I think they're done with rule changes, so I'm fine continuing on.
No action for that. And it's appointed, so it doesn't need a vote. Ventura County Animal Service Commission.
I absolutely love serving on the Ventura County Animal Services Commission, and I'm really excited to work with the new director that we have. We've had a tumultuous couple years, and I'm hoping, and our meeting schedule has fallen apart. We really haven't had too many meetings through all the turmoil, but looks like we're going to be on track to having a dynamic, amazing director. I brought him out here about a month ago, I believe, and gave him a tour of the area. Esteban, I can't remember his last name, but anyways.
Great, thank you. Any other interests? Alternate, Councilmember Hernandez?
I'm fine. I've never had the opportunity to go to a meeting, so I'm good.
Good, okay, great. Motion.
I move to nominate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
This is a really good team building exercise.
Great.
Feeling good about it.
The VCTC, I would like to continue on that.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance District Board, that's, there's no alternate, but the primary is Councilmember Hernandez.
I'm chair also.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Hernandez to carry on.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Next is the Regional Sanitation District. I'm currently the primary, and Councilmember Hernandez is the alternate. Any interest?
Microphone.
Any?
When the city clerk gets up, you know you're in trouble. Watch out.
Say any interest. I'm willing to continue.
So moved.
Alternate, Councilmember Hernandez.
I'll continue as alternate.
Okay.
I'll make the
Second.
motion. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
And the last is is that the, no, it's not the last, the Museum Governance Committee. I'm currently sitting on that, and the alternate is Mr. Gama.
Are we going down the same path on those other two?
Potentially, we haven't been asked. I think, actually, if I remember right, I think the council, when the museum reopened, the council actually gave the assignment to the museum committee to come back with their proposed sort of governance structure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
potentially, it's sort of in their court to come back and tell us how they want to do it.
Okay, so we could pass on that one.
Yeah, I think just leave it alone for
Okay.
now, and then we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Next, Air Pollution Control Board. I'm appointed to that, and so I'd like to continue, of course.
So move.
And Madam Mayor, these you don't have to,
Okay. Great, we're good?
Oh, that's right.
There's
Yes.
appointments? Okay.
Thank you.
they're not appointed by council.
Okay.
Okay, great. So is that it?
I think that is it.
The ones down there? Okay, great. Great.
Oh, I do have one that I need to run by the city council, because according to our policies and procedures, the council needs to approve any outside committees that we may be a member of, and at the same time represent the city. And that would be the League of California Cities. I'm second vice president this year for the coastal counties group. And the reason I think it's important, because there are some budgetary costs for travel and hotel associated with that assignment.
Okay, my initial thought is that we can get that information and bring that back as an item. It could be potentially a consent item if it's simple, versus I think doing it under this kind of existing committee appointment.
Okay.
Potentially, yeah, it could be maybe a little bit of a Brown Act issue, so we can bring that to a future council
How would
meeting.
that be a Brown Act issue? I'm just curious.
Not agendized.
Because it's not agendized. So theoretically, if a
okay.
member of the public wanted to speak about the League of Cities Committee, they don't.
Oh,
have
I
the,
see.
They don't have the opportunity to
Okay.
do that now. So I think we can get that information from you and the League of Cities and then bring it
Okay,
back.
very good.
So.
All right.
Okay, I think we have completed that task.
Cool.
Correct. So,
And we have plenty of motions,
Yes.
and Georgiana will have fun typing the minutes.
okay, so we'll.
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't do water agency, Port Hueneme Water Agency with Martinez as the primary.
We did-
Those
we
appoint,
did, I just
the PHWA actually makes those appointments for the AWA.
Oh,
that one.
okay, very good. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we will move to agenda item number 10, synopsis of agreements between the City of Port Hueneme and Oxnard Harbor Port. Will staff please present the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, audience, staff. This is really an education item to bring our newest council member up to speed with respect to these agreements. And some of them are very complicated, as well as to refresh the recollection of the remainder of the council. Primarily, there are 4 separate agreements. There's a modification to one agreement, and there are 2 amendments to the agreements. And the stated purpose of all of these agreements is to offset the costs of improvements and maintenance of city infrastructure due to the port's activities. I've listed those agreements out on the first slide. There's a 1983 agreement, a 1987 agreement, first modification to the 1983 agreement, an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding between the city, the port, and the Surplus Property Authority regarding the transfer of the NCEL, Naval Construction Engineering Laboratory property, which has 2 addenda. There's a settlement agreement, settlement and release agreement between the city and the port dated October 5, 2015. There's a first amendment to the 1983 agreement, and then a second amendment to the 1983 agreement. What's interesting and needs to be kept in the back of your mind is that all of these agreements, to a certain extent, are still in full force and effect. There have been some modifications, but I'll review that with you. And all of the agreements conclude right about March 2036. Okay, the 1983 agreement. The original term of this agreement was for 25 years, and it really focused on truck and vehicle traffic impacts on the infrastructure and the maintenance and road repair costs, as well as increased security concerns. So the city obligations under this agreement are reconstruction and widening of Panoma Road, maintenance and repair of Pleasant Valley and Port Hueneme roads to ensure full use by the port, providing and maintaining police patrol and investigative services within and around the port, city approval of a resolution consenting to the port's acquisition of certain properties, and the city is to provide a report each year of these items by September 1 of each year. Under the 1983 agreement, the port, in consideration of those actions by the city, the port was to make a payment to the city of 0.2778% of the port's gross operating revenues as indicated in the most recent audit. And that was to be made by the 10th of every month. Remember, that agreement is still in full force and effect. Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm really bad with clicker. Thanks.
Did I hear you say that that calculation would be done on a monthly basis?
Yes. Under the agreement, the payment is to be made by the 10th of each month.
And then it would be audited? I got mixed up because I think you said they're subject to financial review or something?
The gross operating revenues are based upon the most recent audit of the port, and the port would make a payment of 0.2778% of those gross operating revenues. This is not an audit by the city. This is the port's own audited financials.
But it would do it on a monthly or just yearly?
Monthly. The payment, under the agreement, the payment is to be made monthly by the 10th of each month.
But don't we do annual, don't public agencies do yearly audits?
That is correct.
Okay, so I'm just wondering how that works out.
I can't answer that.
Yeah, my assumption would be I assume that they actually just base it on their month-end reports, but then at the end of the year they provide, and it's probably something Joan's going to touch on, but at the end of the year they do provide per the contract, they're supposed to provide their reconciliation via their audited audit statements, their audit documents. I think that's listed in the contract, but I don't expect that they were agreeing to do a monthly audit. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
So how far do you, I'm going to ask the council members, now, how far do you want to go before we start asking questions? Or do you want to notate your questions and?
I suggest we get through the presentation.
At least.
Yeah, I think that especially as we get further along, some of the answers are in like the next slide where there's modifications. So I'd recommend, I know it's frustrating because we have to wait, but I recommend getting through the presentation and then having the clear picture to ask questions.
Thank you.
Well, I just think that if questions come up and we clarify them and we keep rolling, you know, because it does, when we get to the end of the presentation, there's a lot of information being thrown at us. So anyways,
well,
whatever if the majority says, let's just go through it and try and save our questions for later, I'm okay with that. If the
yes. So I'm not saying go through the whole one, but if we could probably hear, we're talking about 1983, if we can just hear 1983, and then maybe we can stop. How do you all feel about that?
Fine with that.
Okay,
Concur.
so let's do it that way.
Per agreement.
After the end of the agreement, if there's questions.
Okay, I think we're on to the 1987 agreement at this point, and I apologize in advance. This is really dry stuff. Very detailed, and these agreements are very complex. The 83 agreement was actually rather simple. Now we're getting into more complicated agreements, and one thing I've noticed is that in these agreements, nobody was defining terms. So there's a lot of question. I guess they didn't believe in terms in those days.
That said, is there any other questions for the 83 agreement? If not,
I have a question.
okay, go right ahead.
So in the 1983 agreement, it does say that on September 30th of each year, the port will provide financial statements audited by an independent CPA. If they're already doing a audit that's independent, I'm not clear why we wouldn't have to ask for another audit.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that'll become clear as we go through future years is that there's probably terms on both sides of the agreement that weren't maybe fully met, and there's been terms that have changed over that time period. We've talked about it with the port at some of the recent joint meetings, but the city didn't really ever follow the practice of submitting our report to them by September 1st, and then I don't think we ever got the report from the port by September 30th. So it's sort of like, it's just, I think each agency just kind of got into a pattern and operated and wasn't honoring every letter of the agreement. I think those are things we've talked about with them that, moving forward, we'd want to try to make sure either that we correct those things and address them, or that we update agreements when we do update them to take out and maybe simplify. I think I will say that is, I think by the end of this presentation, what we'll all say is we should simplify these things moving forward, because it's layers and layers and layers of outdated language requirements, et cetera. So in their current agreement, we are supposed to provide a report to them by September 1st. They're supposed to provide audited statements back by September 30th. I don't think that those things ever happened.
So their end of the year audit, we're not adjudicating that against the invoices that they give us? Our staff?
It does not. This is going back 40 years, 42 years at this point. It does not appear to me that it was ever
done.
Yeah, kind of analyzed by anybody. I think sort of both sides just sent each other invoices and kind of moved on. So.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're talking about the 83 agreement. Is there any formula that led to the .02778?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Is there any description how that number came into being? In other words,
No, Councilmember, this agreement was 40 some odd years ago. I'm not aware of like a staff report in support of it or anything of that nature, which would provide more detailed information as to how that number was arrived at.
right, because
There's just a lot of missing information on that. It's just what the contract says.
a lot has changed since 1983, and I was wondering if there's a way we could at least come up with the formulation of that figure, what went into it. You'd like to have what do they call, not provenance, but sourcing, your source document that says, oh no, here's how we came up with that number.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Councilmember Gama, I'm not aware of the existence of any such document.
Thank
And
you.
all I have is really just the contract.
Yeah. Can I just add that this is education, so we're learning now, so we shouldn't be trying to talk about fixes yet. We're not there yet.
Thank you.
So let's come. Yeah, thank you.
Was
Thank
I
you
talking
for-
about a fix? I was just trying to
Yeah.
understand if there was documentation to support the development of this number.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's go on. Who's got the clicker? You got it. Okay, 1987 agreement. The 1987 agreement resulted from the port's expansion of operations at the port through the creation of a second wharf and the Dole project. There had also been litigation between the parties regarding land use entitlements relating to this port expansion. Again, this agreement confirms that the 1983 agreement is still in full force and effect, and this is all set to expire in 2036. There were new payment obligations for the port. Upon the 366th day following the issuance of building permits to the port, or 566 days after the issuance of a CFO, whichever occurs first, the port will pay to the city 1.6% of gross operating revenues on the first of the month. Section 6 of the 1987 agreement restricts the city's use of these funds for specific purposes, along specific routes for the truck uses, etc. Additionally, the gross operating revenues can be used for upgrading traffic signals at specific locations, turn lanes, road widening, really infrastructure uses, and grants for coastal management. On the approval of the development permit for the Dole project, the port will pay a one-time fee of $100,000 to the city. This payment can only be used for the purposes identified in Resolution 2324, which includes partial mitigation of the port's environmental impacts, to make improvements, or to assist in the procurement of state grants for the Coastal Management Improvement Program. The 1987 agreement was required to be approved in a validation proceeding before the Ventura County Superior Court. And upon validation by the court, the port was ordered to pay $200,000 to the city as an advance on the monthly payments of gross operating revenue. From this, the port was allowed to deduct $166.66 monthly thereafter until the full $200,000 is recovered. And this $200,000 had restrictions on its use. Again, road improvements, turn lanes, road infrastructure improvement. It is my understanding that this validation proceeding before the Ventura County Court did occur, and it was granted. Let's see. Next page. All right, we have more new payment obligations. The agreement added an automobile convoy fee for each vehicle convoyed from the port with a limit of 50,000 vehicles annually. On the 10th day of every month, the port was to pay $1 for each vehicle convoyed beginning January 1, 1993. This amount increased by 25 cents every third January 1. The current payment should be $3.75 per vehicle. However, at the start of each year, the port is entitled to assert a credit against future payments in the amount of 25 cents for every $1 paid of automobile convoy charges. The city and the port were to agree on routes and days for convoys, and the port was to pay for related traffic control. This agreement also places restrictions on the amount of cargo and vehicle traffic from the port. And those are listed in item 8A through E. And you can see those, like 71.1 million revenue tons of cargo, excluding liquids. And then the next one is no more than 71.1 million gallons of liquid, excluding liquid pumped from a pipeline. No more than 11,640 average light vehicle trips per day. No more than 788 average heavy truck trips per day. And if the port exceeds these limits, it must reduce operations to below the thresholds or prepare a supplemental EIR, environmental impact report, to take all action to mitigate environmental impacts. All right, let's go to the next page. On September 30th of each year, the port is to provide audited financial statements verifying the gross operating revenues for the preceding year, the number of automobiles convoyed the preceding year, and the total cargo for the preceding year. Now, Section 12 includes comprehensive land use provisions and changes to the development and building standards for the Dole project. Section 12 also contemplated a discontinuation of the southerly rail service. New tenants or tenants who renew a lease after the effective date of this 1987 agreement must cease using existing vessel bunkering or fuel oil storage facilities and design new facilities which may not encroach on residential or commercial areas, adjacent to the port. Section 13 contemplates construction of a new central gate. That should be gate, it should not be gauge. New central gate, and mandates that all pedestrian and vehicle traffic using the Clara and Scott Street gate cease with limited exception. And the port must provide the city with records to confirm the total cargo for the port. If the city monitors traffic to and from the port, the city has to share those reports annually with the port. The port is to establish a noise abatement program in accordance with the city's noise impact mitigation program. And Section 15 provides that during times of water shortage, the port will be prohibited from selling water to any entity or person other than to vessels.
First question, the word convoy,
It's not defined.
it's not defined.
No.
Do we know how it is being utilized now? I mean, do we get a record showing the amount of cars? We're supposed to get a record showing the amount of cars, correct? Or convoyed vehicles?
Based upon the agreement, the strict language of the agreement, I can't tell what the term convoy means. Is convoy one car? Is it two? Is it more than two? It's just an undefined term. And how does that relate to what I understand is happening now, which is multiple cars being placed on a truck and moved out of the port to another area? So this is one of those undefined terms that, as your lawyer, I find problematic, and just, I don't have the answer to it, because there's nothing in the record that would indicate that anybody defined that term.
But we're supposed to get an accounting of the amount of vehicles convoyed, correct?
We get a monthly invoice that lists the total number of vehicles that we are receiving payment for. It doesn't define.
But
what
it's not
convoy
telling
is.
us how they went about counting the convoy
That's n-
versus,
That's not included in the invoice.
Right, and so, I'm sorry.
hold on, one more question. Number 14, does the port produce the city, does the port provide the city with a cargo record?
Similar, we receive a monthly invoice that has, we receive one with the number of vehicles, and we receive one with that information. But it doesn't give detail in how it was arrived at or anything like that. So.
Okay, I'm done with my questions.
Thank you. So what I find interesting is that when the port, I remember this because I was just graduated from high school in 1981, the port decided to bring BMWs in to the Port of Hueneme. They were all excited. They came to the city and said, hey, we're going to bring cars in and we're going to pay you. And then, so what I'm wondering is when they started bringing cars into the naval base, and they clearly decided when those cars leave on an auto transport truck, they're not a convoy. Is that what I'm pretty sure I've learned that. No, that's not a convoy. Read the agreement. I'm like, okay. So
I can't answer that question, Councilmember, because the term convoy is not defined in the agreement.
okay, and so it's back to like the formula with the 1983 agreement.
That's correct.
Okay, so when vehicles were going to the Navy base, did they ever come to say, hey, we're now going to do 50 acres of vehicles on the Navy base, and so we didn't update or make a change to any agreement on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Pro Tem?
So, reading some of this here, I guess for clarity too, if we're going to clarify convoys, I think we should clarify cars. So when we say cars, is it, because in some invoices by tonnage, by weight. So I think just we need clarity on, is it weight or is it per car? So if we're going to ask for clarity, we should basically fix that language also.
And that may be, like Joan had started off saying that the purpose of this is to be educational. And so a next sort of step can be those questions that the council's identifying. If you identify those, then we can do our own research. We could also contact the port and make sure we all have the same understanding. So that might be a good next step. And so we'll start tracking sort of those questions, and that can be something we do moving forward. So.
Yes, Councilmember Thomas.
Question on number 16. We went through a severe drought period, and I'm wondering, has 16 ever been in play? Because
not aware of
it's
it.
really, because I know that during the drought, I mean, we're all rationing water. Remember that? It was tough. So it says during times of water shortage.
I'd add that to our list of questions.
Yeah, and I think that term water shortage, I was going to say that's complicated even. You know, we've had water restrictions, but that might not actually be a water shortage. So I don't, Joan and I will give the default answer that neither of us know what happened in 1983 or in 1987.
Why not?
I was still in law school.
For the record, I was not born yet in 1983.
Come on.
But so, like, we're trying to answer these very, like, strictly with, like, what's on paper that we can read. We have theories about why things have happened and things like that, but I think having this discussion is good because we can follow up and make sure that we have understanding on what's happened
That's
since then.
correct. There's a lot of these questions that at this point, we just don't have answers to.
But you're taking note of them.
Contracts that I can look at and read, try to decipher them in my own mind, come up with questions. My job tonight is to educate and refresh your recollection on these agreements. And the next one is actually the easiest one of the bunch. The first modification of the 83 agreement dated in 1988, and it removed the requirement to widen Panoma Road.
Well,
So we
that's
can now
nice.
get on to.
Any questions?
I do. I
Oh,
want to
no.
go. I'm sorry, but
It's okay.
again, I'm trying to learn. So the port recently established that temporary lot at Perkins and Saviors Road. Looks like there's thousands of cars there, a few thousand. That's a convoy, right? I think everyone agrees that, are those cars counted as a convoy?
I don't know.
We don't know that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it depends on how they got there, but I don't want to speak for the port, so I think that's something we have to get clarity on.
Okay.
Not according to Webster's dictionary. The definition of convoy is just a group of vehicles. So,
So is convoy under these agreements, are you counting one vehicle?
but
Or
when they're
does it
driving
have to
down the
be more
road,
than-
that's a
does it
group
have
of
to be more
vehicles
than one?
traveling at the same time, at the same place, to the same direction. That can be
Yes.
considered a group of vehicles. So as a truck, so as a, all these, any kind of transport is a group of vehicles.
Yeah. So we're going to find out what convoy means in these agreements.
And how it's been
and how it's
applied.
been
How it's been applied,
and
that
how
would
it's
be
used.
really
Yes.
critical.
Yes.
How hasn't been applied?
That's correct.
Yeah, because there's two sides to it.
Right. All right, here comes one of the more complicated agreements, which is the 1995 NCEL MOU. This one came about as the port was acquiring 33 acres of land, the NCEL, from the U.S. Navy in a no-cost transfer. The term of this agreement tracks the 1983 and the 1987 agreement such that it terminates in 2036. The NCEL property was to be divided into 3 parcels. Parcel A was a minimum, of 21 acres and a maximum of 25 acres to be used for expansion of the port. Parcel B, a minimum of 8 acres and a maximum of 12 to be used by the Surplus Land Authority, which is referred here as the authority, for aquaculture, marine fisheries, and maritime-related activities. And then there was a parcel C, a minimum of 8 acres and a maximum of 12 acres, to be used for construction and maintenance of a seawall and waterfront access. Okay, next slide. Thank you. All right, parcel A was to be managed and funded by the port. Parcel B was to be managed and funded by the authority, which again is the Surplus Land Authority. Parcel C was to be managed and funded jointly by the city, the authority, and the port by percentage of land under the exclusive control of each entity. The MOU created additional payment obligations from the port to the city. These included a one-time advance payment, base payments, variable payments based upon gross operating revenues, and a premium on vehicle convoy fees for exceeding the $50,000 vehicle annual limit pursuant to the 1987 agreement. And there's that term convoy again. Upon transfer, of the Ensel property, the port is to pay the city $150,000, which must be used for traffic improvements as identified in the 1995 Ensel Community Reuse Plan. In addition, the port will begin making base payments divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 commences when the full and immediate transfer of the Ensel property is completed and results in a port payment of $30,000 per year with CPI adjustments annually. Phase 2 commences with the issuance of all governmental approvals and environmental approvals required for the development permits on the Ensel property. Phase 2 payments are $60,000 per year, subject again to annual CPI increases. Phase 3 commences upon issuance of certificates of occupancy for substantial developments on parcel A. During phase 3, the port shall pay $90,000 annually to the city with CPI increases. Base payment and variable payment are separate and in addition to the gross operating payments that were identified in the 83 and 1987 agreements. This slide shows you the variable payment percentages based upon gross operating revenues. And this slide is actually right in the agreement itself. So you can see if the gross operating revenues were 8 million or less, the variable payment percentage would be 2%. And then it increases from there, going to 14 million or greater at 3%. And the payments for vehicles convoyed remain the same as the 87 agreement. However, for every vehicle convoyed in excess of the 50,000 vehicle annual limit, the port will pay a premium of 50 cents per vehicle. All right, here we go. The 1995 Ensel MOU also includes land use provisions for parcels A and 3 and waives the fees for any development with the exception of environmental mitigation, railroad mitigation, sewer connection, service charges, or other agency exactions, as the annual payments are deemed in lieu. Now, specific land use provisions for parcels A and 3 are as follows. And all of those are listed in my staff report. They're on the PowerPoint here. And they're basically that the use of the parcels must conform to the Ensel Community Reuse Plan, and parcel A must conform to the VZM development concept, requires the city and port to implement zoning changes and that were identified in the 1987 agreement. All vehicle traffic to parcels A and B shall be through the central gate with limited exceptions identified in the 87 agreement. The southerly rail service, is to be realigned across the Sunkist site and terminate at the southerly portion of the Ensel property. The port, city, and authority will jointly cooperate to develop parcel B into an aquaculture business area, and net income from this area should be retained by the authority. The port, city, and authority will enter into a joint use agreement with the U.S. Navy regarding the Ensel property. The authority will be responsible for implementation of the homeless assistance strategy as specified in the 1995 Ensel Community Reuse Plan.
Okay, so there's a lot here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Questions?
Oh, we still have more to go. I have one more slide.
Okay, just questions really quick. Any questions?
Where are parcels A, B, and C located?
I don't know.
And have we ever done any of these things that we're supposed to be jointly engaged in? Has this ever, do we know?
So we know certain things have been done. We know certain things were not done, and then there's other things that that we don't have any record of if they were done or not. Example, the widening of Panoma Street. We know that wasn't done, but we know there was also a contract later on that said we agreed not to do it. Likewise, and we just went through this with the Community Benefit Fund too, that there are some things that we agreed to do, and then 4 or 5 years later we hadn't done, and then I think both agencies just said, then why bother? If we didn't need to do it and it's not done, then we're not going to do it. So I think that there's kind of this combination of those things. But I think just on this slide, there are a couple of things that, like development of the aquaculture business area. I know that there's been aquaculture, but I don't know if it was done per this agreement and with all of those requirements of this agreement. That's something we'd have to find out.
Councilmember Perez, I misspoke. At the end of the agreement, which is attached as Exhibit 4, right after the signature pages, there is a map.
There's a map. Okay.
Yeah. Diagrams.
Yeah, there's a map and there's some diagrams that would indicate where the respective parcels are. And I
Okay.
apologize for misspeaking.
Thank you.
A few slides ago, there was 60,000 payment for partial A, B, C. Have we tracked those payments, or do we have evidence that those payments have been made? Or it just seems very vague, and honestly, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head. I'm like, can you please stop? Because, like each one of those points, I would like to see some source documentation at least and say, hey, here's what we did. Here's what we got,
I think the challenge is those payments were due to be made in 1995, and I don't think we'd have our computer system that has our financial records doesn't go back to 1995. So some of this is the assumption is gonna have to be made that some of these things were done. Otherwise, there would have been an issue at some point in that period, but we can't even go back to some of those records at this point.
And there was an issue because at later points, there was a settlement agreement. That would be the next document, is the next contract. There was a settlement agreement because there was a dispute as to whether or not the port and the city were complying with their respective obligations under the agreements.
Okay, any more questions so far, where we are? Okay, we can continue.
Okay. The last slide on the 1995 Ensel MOU is that there have been 2 addendums to this. The addendum number 1 was added because of exhaustion of reasonable efforts to resolve sand replenishment issues. And addendum number 2 relates to waterfront improvements and constructions of a lighthouse promenade. And I haven't summarized that here. Though the maintenance of the seawall on parcel C is apportioned to each of the parties based upon the exclusive control of each, the port may advance any unencumbered funds to cover the authority's pro rata share of at the authority's written request. The advance will gain interest at the rate of 6% and may be amortized over a period of 6 months. And the advance may only occur when emergency repairs to the seawall are necessary during a period when the federal government fails to maintain a littoral sediment balance of 1.254 million cubic yards per year, And nothing in the addendum prevents any party from recovering funds from the federal government, and the amount deducted from port annual payments may not exceed the amount owed to the city. That concludes my discussion on the 1995 NCEL MOU. As I mentioned previously, there was a dispute between the city and the port, where the city alleged that the port was underreporting its gross operating revenues and making insufficient payments under the 83, 87, and the 1995 NCEL MOU. And the city also alleged that the port was making or taking improper automobile convoy credits. This resulted in the 2015 settlement agreement. Under the 1995 NCEL MOU, the port acquired property from the Navy and granted a leasehold interest in parcels B and C to the authority. The authority had the right to sublease and enter on parcel B. There were a number of subtenants on parcel B. Part of the 2015 settlement agreement was to clarify the sharing of gross operating revenues, the vehicle convoy payments, and to give all of the authority's rights in parcel B to the port. Under the agreement, the port obligated itself to be responsible for everything related to parcel B. The city retained land use authority over all NCEL properties. Parcels A and B are now under full control of the port, and the port is entitled to the whole common trust allocation of the 1995 NCEL MOU. The port must pay to the city a one-time payment of $1,100,000 within 30 days of the transfer of parcel B. Next slide, please. Okay, calculation of gross operating revenues is to be completed in accordance with the 1983 agreement and be identified as total operating revenues in the port's comprehensive annual financial report. This document created the Community Benefit Fund. For each year that the port reports gross operating revenues in excess of $13 million at the port, including the revenues from parcel B, the port will pay the city $100,000 with CPI increases beginning in the 2015-2016 fiscal year. Each year, the port and the city will mutually agree to determine projects that will benefit the community for which those funds can be used. If they cannot agree, the Community Benefit Fund can be unilaterally used as determined by the city for shoreline protection, community development, opportunistic endeavors, and other projects as agreed. Okay. First Amendment to the 1983 agreement. This extended the term from 25 to 27 years from the additional 25 years. So based on all calculations, the 1983 agreement, the 87 agreement, the 2015 settlement agreement, and the NCEL MOU all conclude in March of 2036. The First Amendment to the 83 agreement also clarified that the use of the payments to the city of the original 0.2778% of gross operating revenues is restricted in a similar manner to the 1.67% revenue sharing in the 1987 agreement. Again, this is capital improvements, infrastructure maintenance, and the port is to provide the city with its audited financial reports by December 31 of each year. Finally, oh, did you want to have questions on this one?
See a blue-footed booby, I gotta say, hey, there's a blue-footed booby.
I'm going to give credit to my wonderful assistant Lexi for coming up with the appropriate visuals for this, because she told me this was really boring and she wanted to put some fancy stuff into it. I had to agree. I'll let her know you commented.
Did anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, I just had a
Council-
comment, but just about the parcel, I now have parcel A and B, which is the beachfront property along the walking path and where the lighthouse is. They sold that for $1.1 million.
That's your comment. Okay, great.
Yeah, my
We're questions now. No comments, questions. Questions regarding the data that's being shared with us.
It's just too much. I mean, I'm overwhelmed right now. Like I'm literally, overwhelmed. And so I do have questions, but then being overwhelmed makes it a little difficult to ask the questions. So basically, the only this 0.2778, that applies to parcel A, C, B, D, or all of them on this slide.
Let me go back to that.
So
This
That's
is
a
an
good-
amendment to the original agreement. It's not an amendment to the
Yeah, this
parcel
is the First
ABC.
Amendment to the 83 agreement.
So the 83 agreement was at 0.02778.
Correct.
Mhm. And so what this amendment did, it didn't change that, it just
Well,
clarified
no,
that.
it's a different number, because unless I wrote it down wrong, I thought we had 0.02778, and here, right now on this screen, it says 0.2778. 27 cents versus 2 cents, right?
Is that a type? Might be a typo on my part. Let me. go
Well,
back and
my
read.
bad for paying
Could
attention.
be a typo. Let me, because this was crazy.
My records show 0.2778.
I think it's 0.2778. Get into the. It's the 87 agreement. Let me go back to the 83 agreement.
So again, that's still a question that we have on our
Yeah.
list.
Mhm.
That's a good.
Is the formula for arriving at that figure. So that question has been asked and it's on our list. So
Mhm.
I don't think we need to belabor it.
Any other questions?
I think it's 0.2778, but I will double check that. But what this First Amendment did was it restricted those funds, the 0.2778, to be used in the same manner as the funds discussed in the 1987 agreement, the 1.67% revenue sharing for capital improvements, infrastructure, maintenance, et cetera. So that was the purpose of the First Amendment to the 83 agreement, which why on earth there was a modification to the 83 agreement and then a First and Second Amendment, I don't understand the verbiage on that. Then there was a Second Amendment to the 1983 agreement to confirm that it all expires on March 13th, 2036. And with that, I'll take whatever questions you have. I'm not sure I can answer them, but we're certainly open to questions.
Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem.
So, say BRAC realignment. The footprint of the port, what would happen if Port Hueneme shut down? Naval Base Ventura County, Port Hueneme. Who divvies that land?
Most likely, that would be, you mean if it was similar to like the Air Force bases?
Yeah, like El
closure?
Toro,
Right.
they give it to the city.
I was actually involved in the redevelopment and reuse of George, and that actually ended up involving an act of Congress. So that's where the land would, not where the land would go, but that's who would have jurisdiction over the land, most likely. I haven't thought that one completely through, but I am very familiar with the Air Force Base closures, because George was just about the first one to be redeveloped in California. I'm very proud of that. And that took an act of Congress. So that's most likely what would happen, but I can't answer that definitively as we sit here tonight.
Any other questions? If no other questions, we have public comments.
Yes, we have public comments. First is Jan Burke.
Well, I'm a little overwhelmed too. Thank you very much for putting this together. I know that was a major undertaking, so thank you, City Attorney, for doing that. So a number of the citizens and the coalition, one of the reasons we've decided to take this on as a topic of discussion, and it's probably even more so now, we're very concerned about the strategic plan, the 10-year strategic plan. We have tried to meet with members of the commission and have not been able to invite them to join us. We have met with Kristen, the CEO, and Miguel. And so we seem to get kind of stonewalled. And we visited with the charrette that they had, but there was no exchange or Q&A. And so the question I have had for this master plan is, how big is big enough? What is the goal? A master plan should have a goal. What is the revenue goal? What is the volume of the amount of of cargo that's coming in from the port? And I can't get an answer. And I think that that's an important thing for the city and for our city and for our constituents here in the city of Hueneme to understand. How does that impact us from a quality of life, from an infrastructure, from the resources that we have, traffic? I mean, I was just driving down Hueneme Road last week to my office from Anacapa View Beach Homes to Arcturus, which is a high traffic area. 15 trucks in 5 minutes, just in that one little drive. So there's definitely a lot of movement going on. In addition, I have a view of the ocean in my backyard, and I see out there 2 to 5 ships, I should say, out there parked for days at a time. So there's an emissions issue that also continues to contribute to the quality of life and air for as Greg had mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of impact. I believe in growth, and I believe as a business owner that, you know, smart growth is good, but what we can't get the answers of what the really end goal here is. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that was just provided today, and it is a little confusing, and I think we need to vet it and really dice it out. And I would like to make a suggestion that the 2 elected bodies, our city council and our commissioners, get together as a whole and have a meeting, and let's get this discussion started. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Austin Yang.
Good evening, Mayor McKinley Zahn and Mayor Pro Tem Lopez and council members, staff, and citizens of this beautiful city. My name is Austin Yang. I'm Chief Financial Officer at the Port of Hueneme. So if I may, I want to clarify a couple things. So for example, the requirement for audit report, the old, the agreement, as City Attorney mentioned, it's September 30 is our deadline, but the new rules, GASB rules and regulation, require us to have multiple outside report and everything, pension, OPEB, leases. It's virtually impossible for us to provide everything by September 30th. But with that, in 2025 agreement, we noticed that and we changed that back to December 31st. So we've been providing our audit report to the city within the due date. And that ACFR contains all the, the cargo commodity by commodity, all the cargo report and everything. So, and going back to the revenue sharing agreement, there are 2 kinds of revenue sharing agreement. One is based on percentage of our revenue. Another one is convoy fee. So the percentage-based revenue sharing is, as Councilmember Gama questioned, 0.2778% per month. So where that number came from, right? So I had the same question one time. So I reverse engineered that. When you annualize 0.2778%, it's 3.33%. So I believe, someone back there, like 42 years ago, came up with 3.33%, and they divide by month. So 0.2778%, I believe, came from that number. So when you annualize it, 3.30% from the port operating revenue goes to the port per 83 agreement. 87 agreement, 1.67% of our total revenue goes to the city. And 95 agreement, 3% of our total operating revenue goes to the city. That's a percentage-based revenue sharing agreement. And convoy fee, every car's convoy over city street, which means per car. So you see all new cars on Wainimi Road, right? So first 50,000 cars, we pay the city $3.75 dollars per car. And anything over 50,000 cars, we pay extra $1.04. So $4.79 per car. So every year, over $500,000 goes to the city as a convoy fee. So convoy means to us every cars going convoys over the city street. Can I have 3 more minutes?
I know the time is up, but
Yeah, I think it's typical. This is an agreement related to the port operations, and there are questions about it, so I think it'd be up to the council to extend that.
Thank you. I'm here to, share some message in behalf of the Port of Wainimi. So here with me, Letitia Austin and Maripaz Zakova here with us. So we thank the city attorney for her detailed recitation of the agreement between the city and the port, including the 2015 settlement agreement. With one minor exception, we concur in her analysis. The staff report says if there is no consensus on project to fund for 3 successive years, the use of community benefit fund may be used for series of categories by unilateral action of the city. But the minor exception is we believe the language that the 25 settlement agreement provide for the city and the port to spend 50% each of unused CBF fund if the city and port cannot agree on how to spend those funds through the CBF process for 3 years in a row. Luckily, the city and the port has not had to use that provision yet, and we don't believe that we'll ever have to, given these next few points. We believe the port and the city has turned the corner from those times in 2013 and 2014 that led to expensive litigation, and we believe that the 2015 settlement agreement set forth fair and reasonable terms that put to rest once and for all the disagreement from those times. The 2015 agreement brings clarity, certainty, and predictability about the financial relations between the city and the port with respect to city services at the port, such as road improvement and public safety services, which we at the port genuinely appreciate for the benefit of our customers and residents near the port and impact to the city. Most importantly, the 2015 agreement ushered in and memorialized the new era of collaboration and cooperation between the port and the city. Clearly embodied into the valuable work of Community Benefit Fund as directed by Joint City-Port Committee process laid out in staff report. The CBF is a win-win-win for port, the city, and the resident we both serve. Over the life of the agreement between the city and the port since 1983, approximately $40 million has been deposited into the city's general fund, with approximately about $2.9 million going in most recent fiscal year 2024. Again, we thank the city attorney for her effort, and we appreciate the collaboration and cooperation of the city through the CBF process. Thank you.
If I may.
thank you. Are there any, can we do that? Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions? Councilmember
Thank you, Mayor.
Almaden, do you have questions?
Austin, thank you for hanging out with us tonight.
And you can answer questions as long as you'd like to.
You had me at convoy, and I believe you said A convoy is any car that goes down the street. Now, I would interpret that as, okay, so the cars coming out on an auto transport truck from the base is a convoy. But I'm pretty sure that's not how the agreement is paid out.
We paid out based on number of cars convoyed over the city street, individual cars, not on the trucks.
But you don't see the cars that come out on an auto transport truck from the port where they're carrying 15 cars. You don't see that as a convoy, is that correct? Or it's not paid as a convoy. I believe it's not, and I believe it should be. But that's my opinion. But so I just wanted, you had me at convoy. You said every car that travels down the street. You didn't say every car that's being driven individually following each other down the street. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, my understanding is that every car is convoyed over city street individually.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask that we limit our comments and ask questions, because we're happy to have you here to answer questions for us, so we don't want you to turn around and leave at any time. So questions only, please. Anybody have any questions?
He asked my question.
He answered your question already. Good. You have a
Trying to
question?
think if I had another one.
Okay, so does that include freight for each car that is coming out of the port? What is that considered? Is that individual car per freight on a train, or is that a convoy? So if there's 20 cars on a train, what is the port paying out?
My understanding is every car's on city street, so it's like driven by driver.
So it doesn't include the rail?
Doesn't include rail. It's the nature of the agreement, I believe. It doesn't include any cargo through the rail.
Would it include multiple cars on a truck transport? Would that be one car, one item, or would you count the individual cars that are on the truck?
I need some clarification because, I cannot remember top of my head.
Sure.
We can report back to you with, with the consultation with the, port staff.
Thank you.
One final question and we'll get moving on. I didn't hear anything about tractors, dump trucks, Volvos, the big things, or the oversized loads. Is there any agreement for the special permit loads that have, multi-axle trailers that need a CHP export? Do we get any consideration for those types of loads?
I believe those high-end heavies, we charge tariff rate to our customers, and revenue we generate, 8% of our total revenue goes to the city as a revenue sharing. So we believe that's the fair share of revenue sharing we have with the city.
It's in the 87 agreement. Councilmember Gama, the reference to trucks, the only really reference that I've seen throughout these agreements is in the 1987 agreement.
What about tractors?
It's again an unidentified term. What do they mean by trucks?
What about oversized loads that are over 80,000 pounds?
I'm not seeing that in any of
I
these
think,
agreements.
if I may, I think the report, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the report, if you read the report, it refers to these heavy-duty trucks by weight, not by type. So, like you have a 50,000-pound vehicle, they're not going to describe what kind of vehicle it is. It seems their measurements based on the weight of the vehicle, not the type.
When we get into comments, I would like to make a comment.
Yeah, so this is my last comment. So when I see a billboard that says like 630,000 cars coming through the port, that doesn't equate to 630,000 cars that we are getting revenue from the city. It sounds like it's not going to match. Is that correct?
I believe that's fair assessment.
And then, my question, my last question is, can we just get clarification on tonnage versus per car? Like, when you guys invoice, your monthly invoice, can't we just get how many cars were processed?
We do have that, annual financial report, which is also available on our website, does have all the cargo tonnage numbers information. And every month, the city received 4 different payments from the port. Each payment will come with a letter stating how many cars convoyed over the city street, plus what kind of revenue sharing the city is receiving. So, for example, 87 agreement, 1.67% of our total revenue, and 95 agreement, we have a 3% of our total revenue coming to the port. So each letter specified the specifics about those payments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I can just add there, so just Austin, I'll follow up with you after the meeting on some of these items, you and your team, and get clarity. And I think just jumping in there, because the reference that Mayor Pro Tem Lopez was referring to is some of the reports that we've received will have vehicles by number of vehicles, and then others will say tonnage. And it's not clear if if it is tonnage or if it's number of vehicles and those types of things. So it was just one of those things on our list to get clarification on. So
Roger.
we'll follow up after today with some of those questions that we can work together to clarify. So
Understood.
Thank you.
Question? Go ahead.
Comment.
Is it to the gentleman there, or you just have a comment?
Well, I'd just like to make a comment that I think what we've all may have learned here tonight, that these agreements are very complicated. They're complex and they cover a very large swath of time. And I would hope that we all could agree to perhaps come together, have conversations that matter, and try and simplify our lives. You do a great job, but you have difficult agreements, and then we're trying to do a job and we're trying to understand. So maybe, hopefully, as a result of all this, we could all agree to simplify, come together, have conversations that matter publicly, of course.
I
Great.
totally agree with Councilman.
Great. Is there anything else? Nothing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Austin.
And thank you, Joan.
And thank you for the blue-footed booby.
Yeah.
The blue-footed booby has been spotted here in Channel Islands every now and then. Not often, but it usually resides in the Galapagos Islands.
Oh, Councilmember Gama, she put that in there just for you.
I love that bird.
Madam Clerk, did we have any other comments? Public
And
comments?
that concludes public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. The recommendation, City Manager, did you have something?
Well, I was actually just going to say, I think what you were saying, which is there is no specific recommendation. I think we got some questions for clarification, so we can proceed with that and get that clarification and provide that information back to council. But obviously the council, if the council does want to give any other specific direction, you can do that at this time.
I have something, Mayor, can I add? To the convoy question, I understand Austin's understanding of what that means, but I'd like to find out how they came up with that.
We can find out. We'll ask as part of that is if there's any history to that, if at some point that was defined in any document between the two parties, or if that's just something that evolved over time. So.
Okay, so the recommendation is just to receive the synopsis of the agreement between the city and the City of Port Hueneme and Oxnard Harbor, and to provide direction. And I think that we've done that already. Okay, all right. Is there a motion and a second?
We don't necessarily need
No,
it.
I don't
okay.
think we need a
Yeah.
motion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, and let's see, number 11. The city council, go ahead. City
Yes,
manager.
thank you. Number 11, item 11 is the 2025 city council presentation schedule. We're pulling that up now here as a visual aid. For some background, we have prepared based on going back and getting the items that the council regularly puts on agendas or has specifically requested. There was an item requested at our last meeting, for example, that's on this list. And then alternatively, we started with those, and then also with the items that staff regularly brings forward, and sort of tried to create a balanced list of items so that there were some months where we had 5 or 6 requests on a meeting, and so we tried to balance that out and start with having 3 presentations or less at each of the upcoming meetings, or each of the meetings scheduled for this year. We wanted to bring that forward as a starting point, and then give the council the opportunity to identify any additional items, any changes, any modifications to that schedule. And so this list is the proposed 2025 presentation schedule. We recommend that the council review it and make any desired modifications. We would then take that forward and build that into our schedule of upcoming council meetings for 2025. So with that, we have the list and we can walk through it, but we recommend council review it and provide that direction.
Councilmember.
I'm so excited that we're going to be in a council meeting on March 17th, St. Patty's Day. Maybe we should have corned beef and cabbage, but proclamation perhaps. I don't know if we've done that in the past.
We haven't in the past, maybe because the meetings maybe haven't fallen on that day. That's something we could do.
Make sure you wear green.
One suggestion would be when we do, if the council does identify an item, we'd also recommend that the council sort of discuss who we would be presenting that proclamation to, because we're trying to, as a practice, make sure we always have somebody available to accept the presentation or the proclamation. So I'm not sure exactly if there's a group that maybe coordinates the local St. Patrick's Day parade, for example.
Yeah.
But so that would be an option that the council could consider.
I may not look it, but I am a little bit Irish. Grandma May.
Council Member Hernandez.
Yeah, before we decide on adding anything to the March meetings, I did have a couple of March recognitions that I wanted to request the council to consider. March is also Tsunami Awareness Month. It's National Women's History Month. So if there's room on the agenda to include both of those, I would like to recommend those 2. I also wanted to go back to September and ask that we add National Preparedness Month and the 9/11 as we did this year.
Can you repeat the month I was writing down? The March
September.
ones? September.
Yeah, we did that this year, and I think in previous years we've always had we've had some kind of emergency preparedness month recognition. And then it's also National Hispanic Heritage Month in September. And as I mentioned, Tsunami Awareness Month in March, National Women's History Month in March, and then May, I'd like to add Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So we've got Black American Heritage, Hispanic Heritage, and Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage. So we have all the diverse groups recognized at some point.
Those could be added if the council provides that direction.
Okay. Do you want to start with the March? So Women's History Month and Tsunami
Awareness Month.
Is there a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion to include for March the Tsunami Awareness Month and National Women's History Month.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
The September, I would like to make a motion to include National Emergency Preparedness Month and combine it with recognition of 9/11, as we did this year. And then add National Hispanic Heritage Month for September as well. I'll need a second.
Is there? Yeah. Is there a
I'll
motion?
second.
Oh, second?
Yeah, that was a motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
And then one last one. In May, I would like to make a motion to add Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
May's busy.
Is there a second?
I second.
May
19th.
Probably be the
would be the
19th.
19th. Yeah, that would fill that one up.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Can we go to Native American? I saw it.
We have, there's a couple things. I think the council added
Native
November.
American Heritage Month, and then
the
Where-
Mother
that was-
Language Day proclamation for February 18th, and then.
What about Father's Day?
What is it?
Father's Day. We do Father's Day, then we have to do Mother's Day. And
We're doing Mother's Day, so.
And then
perhaps
Native
we should
American
do-
Heritage Month in
In
November.
November.
Okay, so my only comment on that is, can we get in sync with the state and the federal government in terms of language and recognizing all tribes?
Recognizing all tribes. That's something that council could choose to do, yeah.
I just think
I think that's November 17th. That's what that does.
right, but if we're gonna, so does this mean we're gonna have a proclamation?
Yes,
And what-
no,
I just want to, again, make the point that let's get our language in line with the state and federal government so that we're recognizing all Native American tribes.
so you could make a motion to
Do I need to make a
include
motion?
recognizing all Native American.
actually, the language did come from the state and federal. So
So
It
it
didn't
says
match.
Native American Heritage Month. That's not what you're talking about.
The proclamation that we had didn't
Yeah.
didn't state that
Yeah, but
throughout the proclamation.
But this is what's on the calendar for this year.
I understand, but I want to make sure that our proclamation recognizes all Native American tribes.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else?
So St. Patty's Day got dropped, I guess.
Or make a motion.
Oh, I mean, I don't know.
Is there a local?
I mean, we're just getting to the point where we have to have a proclamation for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Right.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Excluding the
Vice
Irish. I'm gonna wear a green jacket, so. But I'm gonna wear a green jacket.
I think everyone's.
Okay,
We're good.
all right. And so I think we had motions to approve all those, so we'll move forward with this list and build those into the schedule for 2025. Thank you.
What I didn't do is ask, was there any public comment?
There is no public comments.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so we'll move to the city manager comments and reports.
Oh, thank you. Too much technology today. I'm barely surviving here. We have just a few slides, a few things we wanted to highlight on some projects that are in progress and that we wanted to let people know about. First is this morning we launched, and it's on our website and social media, but we launched one of the next steps on developing our Americans with Disabilities Act self-evaluation and transition plan. We are developing a citywide ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And one of the steps that we're on right now is to do a citywide questionnaire asking everyone, including just anybody in the room here is free to answer. Any member of the public can answer. We're asking for people for their feedback on how our departments and programs and services are or are not accessible to persons with disabilities, so that we're able to get kind of that understanding of where we're doing things right and where we may be missing things. So that launched today. We are in the midst of this self-evaluation and transition plan, and so we're asking people to give us that feedback to help us develop that plan over the next few months. So that's available now. There's a code here that people could scan to take the survey. You can do it from your phone. It's pretty simple, but or you can visit our social media and get the information there as well. Next, this one is a lot more visible. People are probably seeing it, especially out in front of City Hall. We've been working on our sewer, one of our main sewer lines being replaced. Very old, I think it's 60-year-old section of sewer lines that's being replaced. And it's a critical section that serves a large part of our community. And so there's a little bit of an inconvenience right now because we have some lane closures, but we've been happy that we've been able to avoid major street closures. We haven't had to have major streets closed, but there's just some areas where we're asking people to merge into one lane for the time being. That project is continuing between now and early April, and maybe with some luck, maybe a little bit sooner, but we're working on that now. The work is proceeding now, and we thank everybody for their patience as that's going on, because it's going to ensure that everybody's sewer lines work correctly for hopefully 60 more years to come after that project's done. We have some big projects right now, and I'll say I'll start with that shout out to Public Works and our facilities teams who are doing a lot of things all at the same time, like that sewer line replacement, and one of the next slides we'll get to. But another big one we're doing in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers and the port and the Channel Islands Harbor District is the dredging project, which is the replacement of sand which includes the replacement of sand on our beach. And so we thank everybody because it's a critical project to make sure that the beach is still here. But we know right now we have closed the promenade from now till about March 1st to allow that work to occur. We know that's an inconvenience, but it's another one of those ones where it's a minor inconvenience for a major benefit and a major project to the community. So that project is taking place now. People can go out and kind of from the edge of the promenade could see some of the work taking place there, and hopefully we'll have our beach fully replenished in the next couple of months. And then seems like people care more about this than the dredge right now, but the all-important swing set is being installed at Hueneme Beach. Probably the question we get more often than any other is, when is the swing set coming back? And so people probably see it taking shape today. We're actually building it this week. And the installation is going to take a little bit more because we have to install the pad and some rubberized material. But it's being built as we speak. I think people can see it, and we're hearing some excitement about it. But we expect it to be ready soon. It's probably it's still going to take a little bit to get the pad and the rubberized material and everything, but it'll be ready soon, and we'll make sure we announce it the minute it is available. So. And then lastly, on January 21st, we wanted to just preview that agenda. Here's what we currently have scheduled. We have the presentation, as noted a moment ago, presentation scheduled for the Alaska Flight 261 Memorial, because this meeting will be about 4 days, I think it is, before the major 25th Memorial Ceremony. So we'll provide that proclamation. On consent, there's a couple of grants that we're trying to work on that we'll be bringing forward to the council, and we're expecting to have those on that agenda. We also have a public hearing for a special use permit for the, it should say City and Port Community Benefit Fund 5K event, continuing what we started last year, but walking through that and getting the permit for that event. And then 2 business items currently scheduled, reviewing the legislative platform, and then the Citizen Advisory Commission and Measure U committee appointments. And we'll provide more information on those ahead of that. But those are the items currently scheduled for January 21st. And
Mayor,
that is what I have.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask a question to City Manager?
Councilmember Perez.
The 5K event, is that going to be the run for the heart with the heart-shaped medals that we did?
We're proposing doing a different theme this year. And part of that is because it's a community benefit fund project, it's the city and the port working together. And so our teams work together and they have a different idea this year. And we'll get into it at that meeting, but the one thing I want to note is that last year we were trying to kind of make sure we got it in February, and we ended up having the weather issues and we had to cancel the event a couple times. So that led into one of the discussions was trying to not do it in February, which kind of meant it wasn't the Heart Month or whatever that month is. So they looked at a new theme on a new date. So we'll be presenting that, but it's the council will review it and approve that. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the council member reports and comments. Councilmember Perez.
I have no reports and comments. December was a slow month for my committees. Thank you.
Councilmember Gama.
Yes, I was able to spend several hours with the new director of Ventura County Animal Services. I wanted to take him around the city and introduce him to all the different peculiarities regarding Silver Strand Beach, the Navy base, City of Oxnard, City of Port Hueneme. And it was a really good day. Beacon, we had a meeting recently. We're at a critical juncture with Beacon in terms of getting regional projects that matter to the stakeholders of Beacon. And of course, that means expanding the science committee and looking at another increase on our budget. But there's alternatives, 10, 15, 20, and 50% increase, depending on what we want it to get out of Beacon. And I'm 100% convinced that our ask of Beacon, if we were to agree to some increase in budget, is to assume the role of our lead lobbying mechanism for maintaining our sand. I mean, this every 2 years we go through this process, and we're not getting the allotment that we are supposed to get. We're getting sand, which is great, but if we, at some point, we're going to have a conversation. The Beacon board needs to be 100% unanimous on any increase, and so what I would need to know from this body is, what are our expectations of Beacon? What are we willing to pay, and what do we expect in return from it? I think we have some great projects that are going that benefit the whole coastal zone membership of Beacon, but each individual member has its own beach issues. And so getting Beacon to work on our issues while at the same time they're working on the Ventura issues, managed retreat at Surfers Point, the dam up there in Matilaha, and the sand issues and all that. So, and I'd just like to leave you with a quote. There's a person by the name of Das, and he says, "We vote every day for the world that we want to live in. we must also act and lead by example to deliver the world we want to live in and leave behind. So, at some point, we're going to have a discussion here to give me direction as to where we want to go with Beacon on the funding and what are our expectations. So perhaps I don't know if I should do it today, but ask for an agenda item on that. One of the things that Beacon has continued to work on is trying to reestablish the kelp forest that was devastated by El Nino. And the reason why that's important to us, because kelp helps us retain sand on the beach. And so we're continuing with that. We want to add more professional services so we can get into more technical projects and that are regionally focused. In other words, City of Port Huenemi's regional focus is dredging, replenishing that beach every 2 years, making sure it's there, because it has down coast issues. So, and then just want to recognize Rich Rollins, former mayor. You stayed through the whole meeting tonight, and we appreciate you. Thank you. And you stayed awake. I think I just woke him up. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I have a busy week. This week, on Wednesday, we finally have a strategic planning meeting planned for RDP on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I will be attending the Navy League luncheon and the AWA meeting at 3 and VCOG at 4. So I've got a busy week. And next week, no meetings planned. We have, except for the mural debrief on Monday. Thank you, City Manager, for finally getting that scheduled. I know it's kind of like herding cats, trying to get everybody's schedule together. And then I've got SCAG meeting on the 16th. So I'll have more to report at our next meeting. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I was not on any committees, so I have nothing to report, but I do want to say, Joan, thank you for the presentation. That was awesome. Learned a lot. Austin, thank you for clarifying a few things. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I haven't had any meetings this month. They've been all pushed back to February, so I'll start participating again. On the 24th of this month, I'll be attending the City Selection Committee, the county, to help fill some county positions, so it'll be my first time, so I'm excited about that. The end of this month, the 28th through the 31st, I'll be in Anaheim attending the Cal City's Mayor and Council Member Academy. And I'm returning home on the 31st, which is the day of the Memorial, Alaska 261 Memorial. So I'm hoping to be able to make it back in time for that. But that's all that I have. So we're going to go ahead and move to request for future agenda items. Anyone? Councilmember Gama?
This doesn't have to be like in quick order, but I think we should have a goals and objective agenda item for Beacon in the City of Port Hueneme. Like, again, it doesn't have to be within a month or so, but.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes, I have one agenda item request, and that is following the presentations, the public comments today. I'd like to request an item on short-term rentals based on the information submitted by Paige LePen.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
On that, quickly, can I just make sure, are we just, at this point, there's no direction on it, so is it just an overview of
Where we
short-term
are with
rentals and-
short-term rentals,
Okay.
what the issue is, what some of the solutions are, that the options we have for solutions for addressing the problem.
Okay.
And I think
Issue
the
and options, okay.
foundational material has been provided to us through Paige LePen.
And I don't want to get into discussion mode, but could we also look at what other coastal cities have done.
She's got that in her information as well. Okay.
So, Councilman Gama had proposed parking in the past meeting. I just want to know where it's at, because we have residents who are struggling with parking, and it has to do with expanding their driveways, you know, limiting the 40%, you know, greenscaping, and I think that needs to, we need to bring that up on the calendar.
So, council received a report on sort of a variety of parking issues and then some options that we could analyze. And then council gave the direction for us to, and the authority to contract with a traffic engineer, parking engineer, and perform an analysis and then bring that back. And I think when it's been 2 months or so, and when we did it, we said we estimated it would be 4 to 5 months, because it's looking at kind of, it's not just that issue, it's like citywide parking and some options. So I know it's in progress because I've got some questions from the engineer about, you know, if certain things would work in our city or not. So, so it's in progress, but I'm guessing, and I think actually I might have actually talked to the department about, I think we were looking at a date like like the first meeting in March, I think, is when we thought we'd bring it back. So it's in progress, and we'll make sure we bring it back in that time frame. So.
Great. You have Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes, I just wanted to ask before we adjourn if we can close in honor of the 174 injured law enforcement officers and those who, the 4 or 5 officers who lost their lives as a result of suicide following the January 6th insurrection of last year.
Okay, great. Is there anything else? If not, we adjourn. And I can't remember everything you said.
In memory of the injured and lost lives of the law enforcement officers who were killed during, let me start over, who died as a result of the January 6th insurrection.
Great, thank you. We're adjourned. It's 10:01.
Thank you.